They thought they were just bottling magic. In the dead of night, beneath a silent sky and a silver moon, a black market cargo ship drifted across the warm waters of the Gulf of Abomi. Its crew moved quickly, no names, no questions, only vials. Each glowing bottle held the shimmering tears of a mermaid, ripped from her underwater prison. What the buyers didn't know, or cared to know, was that every drop of that stolen essence cost a life. The rich paid in gold. The mermaids paid in blood. But tonight, everything would change. Because somewhere in the shadows of that cursed vessel, someone was waiting. She wasn't rich. She wasn't cruel. She wasn't even fully human anymore. She was trained by the ocean gods, blessed by Mami Wata herself, and armed with weapons forged from coral, bone, and code. Her name was Nala, and she wasn't here to bargain. She was here to burn it all down. What the smugglers didn't know was that they hadn't just captured mermaids. They had captured Nala's sisters. And the woman in the shadows, the one they couldn't see, couldn't hear, and couldn't stop, was about to make them pay. But even she wasn't ready for what she'd find. Because at the heart of the smuggling ring, behind the chains and blood-soaked coins, stood the one person she never expected to see. Her twin brother. Stolen at birth. Raised to believe that mermaids were monsters. Trained to kill them all. This is the story of how a priestess of the sea found her lost brother among her greatest enemies. And how her choice, to save her kind or redeem her blood, would determine the fate of both worlds. Before we dive deeper into this epic tale, we'd love to know where you are watching from. Tell us in the comments. And if you love high-stakes fantasy filled with mermaids, magic, love, and sacrifice, don't just watch, be part of our adventure. Like this video, share it with someone who loves powerful stories, and hit that subscribe button, because tomorrow, we've got an extra special story lined up for you, and trust me, you won't want to miss it. A huge thank you to all our amazing channel members. Your support helps us keep these magical tales alive and thriving. The sea was angry that night. Waves as tall as trees smashed against the iron sides of the ship Shadow Eye, howling like wild spirits. Lightning tore open the sky again and again, showing quick flashes of the ship's massive nets dragging through the black water. Inside one of those nets was a mermaid. Her name was Zila. Her long hair floated around her like seaweed, glowing softly with the light of her magic. Her tail shimmered green and gold, but now it was tangled in ropes that cut into her skin. Her silver eyes, full of tears and fire, stared up at the dark sky. She was not alone in the net. There were 3 other mermaids, all daughters of Mami Wata, the great goddess of the water. They cried out in songs that made the sea tremble, but the ship's noise swallowed their voices. The nets were enchanted, made from special threads soaked in old blood and greed. Magic couldn't break them. High above the deck, a tall man in a long black coat stood still, watching the storm with calm eyes. His name was Kanu. The men called him Master. No one knew where he came from, only that he never aged and always wore gloves that covered his hands from view. He turned and nodded at a guard. "Secure the catch," he said quietly. The guard, a short man with a snake tattoo curling around his neck, grabbed a rod that sparked with blue light. He walked to the edge of the deck, leaned over, and pressed the rod against the net. Zila screamed. Her body twisted as the rod sent shocks through her skin. Her magic flickered. The sea roared louder. Suddenly, far from the ship, something moved in the water. It was too fast for human eyes, just a blur in the waves. But it was coming closer. Down in the ship's dark control room, computers buzzed, showing maps and pulsing lights. Sitting before the main screen was a woman with glowing marks on her arms. Her eyes glowed faintly blue, like deep ocean water. Her name was Nala. She was a priestess of Mami Wata. But not just any priestess. She was the Shadow Pearl, trained in ancient river magic and the digital codes of the New World. Her village, Kakir, had been wiped away by greed years ago, when hunters came for her sisters. She never forgot. Now, she had found the Shadow Eye. It was the ship that carried the stolen mermaids, her sisters. It was where the illegal immortality serum was made, a thick golden liquid drawn from the hearts of captured mermaids, sold only to the rich, the wicked, and the dying. Nala's fingers danced over her small round tech drum. It looked like a calabash, but it held codes, maps, and magic. Her voice was low. Econ protocol, engage. Her screen lit up red. Suddenly, all over the ship, lights blinked and alarms screamed. The engines coughed. The ship groaned as if something heavy was climbing up its sides. On deck, Kanu's calm face twisted. "What is this?" he hissed. He turned to a nearby soldier. "Check the control room. Now." But the soldier never moved. From behind him came a sharp sound, "Thwip," and he dropped, a feathered dart in his neck. Nala was already on the move. She had slipped aboard during the storm, using a spell that cloaked her like mist. Her hair was braided in tight rows, and her dark cloak was soaked from the rain. In one hand she held a knife made of fish bone and coral, in the other, a beaded chain that glowed each time she whispered Mami Wada's name. She ran through the narrow halls of the ship, throwing darts, pressing charms, unlocking the doors where her sisters were kept in cold tanks of salt water. Her heart beat like a talking drum. But then, she heard a voice. "Nala." She froze. No one had called her name like that in years. Not since the fire in Kakir. Not since her baby brother was stolen as she watched helpless from the river. She turned. Standing in front of her was a tall young man, no older than 25. His hair was shaved close on the sides, with tribal marks hidden just below his eyes. His coat was rich and dark, and a crystal badge glowed on his chest. "Nala," he said again. "It's me. It's Toba." Her knife fell from her hand. Her baby brother, now grown, stood before her, not as a victim, but as the lead broker of the ship. The ship that stole mermaids. The ship that sold immortality. "No," she whispered. "It can't be." Toba stepped forward, confused. "You're the saboteur? You're the one destroying everything. Why would you help them, those monsters?" "They are not monsters," Nala shouted, tears mixing with the sea on her cheeks. "They are our sisters. They are daughters of the same goddess who birthed the rivers of our land." He looked away. "I was told they kill. That they lure men with songs, then drown them." Nala took a deep breath. "They only drown those who come with nets and greed." Silence sat heavy between them. Toba looked into her eyes. "Then why do I remember nothing? Why don't I remember you?" "Because they made you forget," she whispered, stepping closer. "Because they raised you in a cage of lies, just like they trapped the mermaids." Behind them, alarms blared louder. The crew had found her trail. Toba's eyes narrowed. "Then tell me. What am I to you?" "You are my brother," Nala said, placing a hand on his chest. "And you are the key." "Key to what?" She looked toward the tanks. "To saving us all, or ending everything." Rain hammered the shadow eye like fists from the sky. The waves had grown wilder now, turning the ocean into a beast with rolling black eyes. Thunder cracked like the whip of Sango himself, and lightning forked across the clouds, lighting up the faces of the mermaids trapped in the tank room below deck. Each of them sang softly, songs of grief, of home, of warning. But the ship didn't care. The ship was built with dark money and darker hearts. In the hallway above, Nala stood inches from her brother, Toba, her breath sharp in the wet air. They stared at each other as time paused around them. He, the boy stolen in a fire, trained to become a weapon. She, the girl who ran into the forest and returned as a warrior priestess. And the ship? It was a floating tomb, waiting to be filled. Toba broke the silence. "I remember. I remember flashes. A drum. A woman with seashells in her hair. A voice that told me to run." Nala nodded slowly. "That was Mama. She died trying to protect you." His face hardened. "Then why did the elders say she was a witch?" "Because they feared what they didn't understand," Nala whispered. "Just like they fear the mermaids." The floor shook beneath their feet. Somewhere above, a metal beam groaned and snapped. "We have to go," Nala said. "Help me free the others." Toba hesitated. His mind spun like a whirlwind, his world breaking apart in seconds. "You want me to betray them? The people who raised me. They used you," Nala said softly. "They stole your name. Your truth. You are not just their weapon. You're my blood." Toba looked down at the floor, fists clenched. "If I help you, they'll come for me too." "They already will," she said, eyes burning with certainty. At that moment, a sharp alarm rang out, long and shrill. "Intruder in lower deck. Level B, code black. Lockdown initiated." Nala grabbed her brother's hand. "Decide now." Toba blinked. His heart beat louder than the sirens. Finally, he nodded. "I'll take you to the tank room." They ran through the narrow metal corridors, dodging steam vents and flickering wires. Toba led her through shortcuts known only to crew, past doors locked with fingerprint scans he easily bypassed. Guards were closing in, but Toba knew how to blind the cameras and jam the radios. For the first time, he wasn't the hunter. He was the one guiding prey to freedom. Below, in a cold chamber filled with humming machines and glowing lights, the mermaids waited. Their tanks were made of reinforced glass and metal, filled with freezing brine and runes that glowed faintly red. Tubes were connected to their veins, drawing golden essence from their bodies into flasks. Nala's face twisted with fury. "They're draining their lives," she said, rushing forward. Zila, the mermaid with green and gold fins, opened her eyes. "Sister." Nala placed a palm against the glass. "Hold on, Zila. We're here." She turned to Toba. "How do we open them?" He hurried to a console nearby, typing in override codes. But the screen flashed a red warning. "Manual override only. We'll need to unlock each tank by hand." Nala didn't wait. She ran to the first tank, whispering words in the ancient river tongue. Her beaded chain pulsed with blue light, and the rune locks flickered. She pressed her hand to the seal. Thrum, the tank hissed open. Zila slumped into her arms. Weak but breathing. Toba unlocked the next one, freeing a younger mermaid with silver scales. The last two followed quickly. As the last tank hissed open, water spilled across the floor, and the room lights dimmed. "They'll know we're here," Toba said. "We have 5 minutes before security gets here in full force." Nala nodded. "Then we go to the engine room." Toba blinked. "Why the engine room?" "To sink the ship." His face paled. "You'll kill the crew." She stared at him with hard eyes. "They sold children to the fire. Let the sea judge them now." Toba said nothing. But inside, something twisted. The mermaids, now free, floated weakly behind them as Nala led the way. Her magic had wrapped around them like a protective wind, shielding them from the cold. They moved through the lower deck like shadows, quiet and swift. Just before they reached the engine room, Toba stopped. I can't go with you," he said. Nala turned, shocked. "Why?" "I need to delay them. If I stay behind, I can lock the upper levels. Give you time." "No," she said. "I'm not leaving you." Toba smiled sadly. "You already lost me once. Let me give you this." He handed her a small carved pendant, the kind worn by children of Kakir. "I kept this all these years. I didn't know why. Now I do." Nala stared at it, her fingers trembling. Toba. But he was already turning, running back into the hallway, sealing the door behind him. She pressed her palm to the glass, watching his shadow disappear. Then she turned, her face cold with purpose. "Let's finish this." The engine room of the shadow I was a loud, rumbling beast. Pipes hissed and groaned. Steam leaked from cracked valves. Gears spun in oily rhythms. And deep within its heart burned a blue flame, unnatural, fed by mermaid essence. It powered the entire ship, and it reeked of stolen magic. Nala stepped into the vast chamber, the freed mermaids behind her, their glowing scales casting dancing lights on the metal walls. She held Zila close, steadying her as they walked. The mermaid's breath was shallow, her tail dragging weakly. "This place is sick," Zila whispered, her voice echoing in the metal hall. "Yes," Nala said softly. "And it's time we make it choke." The other mermaids, Yara, Pina, and Oloy, gathered near the base of the engine. Despite their pain, their eyes burned with the strength of the ocean. "Can you still sing?" Nala asked. Pina nodded. "Our voices are dim, but not gone. Then we call the deep." She opened her bag and pulled out a small gourd. It looked plain, but inside was water from Ape Lagoon, the last untouched spring of Mami Wada's temple. She had hidden it for this moment. Nala poured a single drop on the floor. It hissed, then bloomed into a glowing pool of blue light. From the puddle, a shape rose, a swirling mask of water, old and wise. "Mami Wada," Nala whispered, bowing. The spirit spoke in a tongue only the sea could carry. "My daughters bleed in chains. What do you ask of me, Shadow Pearl?" "I ask for your wrath," Nala replied. "Let your flood rise. Let this place fall." The mask stared at her with hollow eyes. "The price is high." Nala nodded. "I am ready." But Zila stepped forward, her body trembling. "No. Let me offer it." Nala turned, shocked. "Zila, you're too weak." Zila placed her hand on the spirit pool. "I was born in the coral caves. I swam with the great whales. I was taken and drained. Let me give something back." The spirit mask paused, then slowly nodded. "One voice must burn. One song must be lost." Zila closed her eyes. "Take my song." The light surged. The room filled with a sound that made the pipes vibrate and the engine shudder. Zila opened her mouth, and a note rose, not loud, but deep and endless, like the very bottom of the ocean. Her body glowed like a starfish under moonlight. Then it dimmed. She fell into Nala's arms, her lips still, her throat silent. "She gave her voice," whispered Oloy, tears in her eyes. "She gave us a storm," said Pina, lifting her head. The pool on the floor began to expand, glowing brighter and brighter until it flowed up the walls, across the pipes, into the gears, and finally into the cursed blue fire of the engine. It screamed. Yes, the engine screamed, a terrible howl of magic unraveling. The stolen essence boiled, bursting from its chambers in waves of golden steam. Tubes melted. Sparks flew. Alarms roared. Above deck, sailors screamed as the ship tilted. Rain poured harder. The sea began to churn in circles, forming a whirlpool beneath the ship. The shadow I groaned like it knew its end was near. But inside, Nala stood calm. "Pina, Yara, Oloy," she said, "it's time to swim." She reached for a small hatch at the base of the room, a secret exit once used by divers. With her coral knife, she carved the sigil of opening. The hatch clicked. Water rushed in. Cold. Pure. Furious. Nala helped Zila float first, pushing her gently into the water. Then the others followed. She turned back once, looking at the burning engine room, her eyes misted. "For every sister taken, for every child stolen, let the ocean remember," she whispered. She dove in. Above, Toba was in the command room, hands flying across the console. He had locked all the outer doors. Blocked every escape pod. Crew members banged on sealed doors, panicked. But Toba didn't flinch. He looked into the ship's black box logs. Dozens of files, every name, every buyer of the serum, every victim taken. He downloaded them into a small shell-shaped chip, wrapped it in waterproof skin, and tucked it inside his shirt. Then he stood and faced the window. The storm outside was alive. Thunder curled like dragons. The whirlpool had grown massive. The shadow I was being pulled in. "She's doing it," he whispered. A small smile touched his lips. Good. Suddenly, a noise. Behind him, footsteps. Kanu. The lead director. The man with ageless eyes. He wasn't dead. He was furious. You betrayed us, Kanu growled. I found out the truth, Toba said, standing straight. She lied to you. Mermaids are monsters. No. You are. Kanu raised his hand. Lightning sparked from his glove. Toba raised his arms, but too slow. But then, crash. The glass behind them exploded as a huge fin slapped into the ship. Water poured in. Kanu screamed as the sea itself burst into the room, dragging him out like a rag doll. Toba held onto the console with all his strength. The chip still safe. The sea trying to swallow everything. He closed his eyes and whispered, Mami Wada, guide me. Then he let go. The sea claimed him. Far below, Nala and the mermaids swam into the open ocean. The shadow eye groaned once more, then tilted, cracked, and vanished into the whirlpool. Gone. The sea calmed. The clouds parted. Above the waves, Nala broke the surface, gasping for air. Around her, her sisters floated, glowing with freedom. Zila looked up, silent but smiling. Then something bobbed in the water nearby. Nala swam to it, Toba. He was unconscious, barely breathing. She pulled him close. You stubborn fool, she whispered. You did it. A wave gently rolled over them, soft like a mother's hand. The sea had chosen mercy. The sun rose gently over the water like a golden bowl tipping light onto the sea. The storm had passed, and in its place, a strange calm blanketed the waves. Gulls cried from above, dancing in the wind. The water shimmered with hints of rainbow, as if Mami Wada herself had brushed her fingers across the surface in blessing. Nala opened her eyes to this light. Her arms still held Toba, his body floating beside her, cold but breathing. Around them, the freed mermaid stirred, Zila silent, Pina humming softly, Oloi blinking into the sunrise. We need land, Yara murmured, her skin pale and thin. We need to rest. There is land, Nala said. Not far. I remember. She raised her hand to the sea and whispered a chant older than time. Wati omi be walo siil. Wati omi be walo siil. O water who carries, carry us home. O water who carries, carry us home. And the sea obeyed. From beneath them, currents shifted gently, like the arms of a giant mother whale. They didn't have to swim. The water itself carried them, rising and rolling in quiet rhythm, pushing them forward. After a time, through the morning mist, a shape began to appear on the horizon. It was not an island. Not quite land. It was the floating village of Ilunla, a hidden sanctuary known only to riverfolk and sea spirits. Built on driftwood, old fishing boats, and enchanted vines, the village rose and fell with the tide. Palm trees grew in baskets of soil hanging from poles. Colorful cloths fluttered from bamboo lines. And at its center stood a high round hut made from woven reeds and copper wire, the House of Ears, where the elders of water listened to the whispers of the sea. As the group approached, children with fish-scale anklets ran to the edge of the village, shouting, Mermaids! Mermaids! Look! The sea people have come. Mothers pulled their children back, eyes wide with wonder and fear. An elder woman stepped forward, her hair as white as egret feathers and her skin deep like river clay. She wore a necklace made of shark teeth and driftwood beads. Her eyes met Nala's. Nala, daughter of a Duk, the woman said. We thought the sea had swallowed you forever. The sea almost did, Nala replied, still holding Toba. But it gave me back something precious. The woman stepped forward and touched Toba's face gently. This boy, he carries a heavy spirit. He is my brother, Nala said firmly. At that, a gasp ran through the crowd. The villagers began to murmur. The lost twin. The one stolen in the fire. Returned by the ocean herself. The elder nodded. Bring them inside. All of them. There is much to heal. They were taken into the round hut at the center of the village. Inside, the air was cool and smelled of salt and herbs. The floor was soft with woven mats, and every corner was filled with quiet music, wind chimes, water bowls, the soft clicking of crab shells. Toba was laid on a mat made of lionfish scales and covered with a net of sea silk. Nala sat beside him, holding his hand. His breathing had steadied, but he hadn't woken. The elder, Mama Koi Koi, known for her laughter and her sharp tongue, began mixing herbs in a clay bowl. She crushed sea grapes, black stone root, and a pinch of red earth. "This will wake him," she said. "But he will not be the same." Nala looked up. "What do you mean?" "When the sea drags you down and spits you out, it leaves a mark. His dreams will carry voices. His skin will hear the tides." Nala nodded slowly. "Then I'll be his anchor." Mama Koi Koi smiled, handing her the bowl. "Then feed him this." Nala gently spooned the mixture into Toba's mouth. It tasted bitter, like fire and salt. For a moment, nothing happened. Then his eyes snapped open. He sat up with a gasp, coughing. His eyes flicked around the room, wild. "Nala." "I'm here," she said, catching him before he fell. "I saw the ship. It was burning. But then I saw Mama." Nala froze. "Mama." He nodded slowly. "She touched my cheek. Said, 'Remember who you are, my son. Not what they made you.'" Nala felt tears rise. "She's watching us." From the corner of the room, the mermaid stirred. Pina sat up, blinking. Oloi splashed a bowl of water over herself. Yara reached over and squeezed Zila's hand. "She still can't speak," Pina whispered. "But she's smiling." Mama Koi Koi stepped closer, studying them. "You freed these daughters of water," she said. "You defied the ones who hunt the sea. That is brave. But now the ocean will call you forever." Nala stood. "Then let it call. I will answer." The elder nodded. "Good. Because trouble comes." "What kind of trouble?" She lifted a bundle from the corner of the room, a bundle wrapped in wet silk and carved wood. She unwrapped it carefully. Inside was a glowing sea flask. Nala's eyes widened. "That's one of the essence vials. It washed up 2 days ago," Mama Koi Koi said. "And with it, messages. Warnings. The serum is being sold across the coast. Towns are whispering about a cure for death. Wealthy men from the cities are sending ships." Nala's face darkened. "They didn't just want to sell it," she whispered. "They want to own it. And if one ship failed, they'll send more." Toba clenched his fists. "Then we stop them. Every last one." The room fell silent. Then Mama Koi Koi raised her hand. "There is a way. But it is dangerous. And ancient." Nala stepped forward. "Tell us." She leaned in close and whispered. "There is a stone. Deep beneath the sea. A heartstone. The first breath of Mami Wada sleeps inside it. Whoever holds it can command the ocean's rage, or its mercy." Oloi shivered. "I thought that was a legend." "Most truths hide as stories," Mama Koi Koi said with a smile. Nala turned to her brother. "Will you come with me?" "Into the deep." Toba looked into her eyes, and for the first time, he didn't see a stranger. He saw family. "I will follow you," he said. "To the very bottom." The night sky above Ilunla was quiet, but the sea below whispered 100 warnings. Stars blinked overhead like the eyes of ancestors. Somewhere far in the east, lightning danced along the horizon, silent, distant, watching. Inside the House of Ears, Nala knelt in front of an ancient map carved into turtle shell. Lines of glowing paint traced old sea routes, from the Niger Delta to the black pits beneath the Bight of Benin. Mama Koi Koi's voice was grave. The Heartstone lies deep beneath the Three Sisters Trench, a place where no man has returned from. It is older than our memories. Older than magic. Even Mommy Wada fears what sleeps beside it. Behind her, the room was still. The mermaids listened silently. Toba stood near the door, his eyes fixed on the map. If we find it, he asked, can we stop them? The Heartstone has power beyond anything they've seen, Mama Koi Koi said. But power comes with price. It doesn't know good or evil. Only the voice of the one who calls it. She looked at Nala. And it will listen to you. Nala clenched her fists. Then I will speak for the sea. At first light, they began preparations. The people of Alunla worked quickly, weaving charms into nets, preparing sea herbs for strength, and chanting prayers into the wind. The village buzzed with both fear and hope. Nala and Toba were fitted with spirit glass masks, old tools from the time of the Shell Wars, allowing breath beneath water through magical air runes. The mermaids would guide them through the deep currents, while Pina carried a water compass made from driftbone and crab eyes. As they stepped into the water, Mama Koi Koi handed Nala a final gift. A pearl. But not just any pearl. It pulsed faintly with blue light. This is a tear from Mommy Wada herself, the elder said. Use it only when all hope fails. Nala tucked the pearl into a pouch around her neck and bowed. Then she and Toba dove beneath the waves. The sea wrapped them in silence. Down they swam, past coral towers and glowing reefs. Schools of fish darted around them, blue tangs, fire eels, and silver minnows that lit up the dark like stars. The mermaids led the way, their tails flicking like silk in the water. Zila, though voiceless, moved with strength and grace. She swam beside Toba, watching him closely. Nala followed Pina, who consulted the drifting compass. It spun slowly, then pointed downward, into the dark mouth of a massive trench. The Three Sisters Trench. The water here grew colder. The light dimmed. Nala could feel it, an old magic pressing around them like breath on her skin. Stay close, Pina whispered. We're not alone. Something swam just beyond the edge of sight. Large. Slow. Watching. But it did not attack. Instead, the ocean began to sing. Not a melody, but a pulse. A heartbeat. Low and deep. Boom, boom, boom. The Heartstone, Nala whispered. It's calling. They swam deeper. The trench walls grew steeper, covered in sharp coral shaped like claws. Strange glowing plants waved from the sides, whispering secrets in currents. Suddenly, a shadow moved in front of them. A giant eel, black as oil, its eyes glowing red, slithered out of a cave. Toba raised his knife. Don't, Nala said. She stepped forward and raised her hand. I seek the heart, she said calmly. Not to steal. Not to rule. But to protect. The eel hissed, then slowly swam away. Even the guardians know her, whispered Oloi in awe. Finally, they reached the bottom of the trench. And there it was. The Heartstone. It pulsed with soft blue and green light, sitting in the center of a cracked stone circle. Shells and bones surrounded it, as if creatures had once come here to worship, or to die. Nala approached it slowly. With every step, she felt her heartbeat match the stones. Boom, boom, boom. When she touched it, a wave of images rushed through her mind. She saw the first mermaid rise from the ocean. She saw cities beneath the sea, now lost. She saw her mother, Aduk, smiling at two infants, twins, before fire and smoke tore them apart. And she saw a vision of the future. Towers rising. Ships with claws. Mermaids in cages. Unless. She took a breath and gripped the Heartstone. Suddenly, the sea trembled. A roar echoed through the trench. Something had awoken. From behind the walls of the trench, a shadow moved. No. Not one shadow. Three. Three massive sea serpents, ancient and blind, with mouths full of glowing teeth. The Sisters of the Deep, gasped Pina. Guardians of the Heart. They think we're thieves, said Toba, pulling his knife. They need to hear our truth, Nala said. She turned to Zila. Sing. Zila looked at her, confused. But I have no voice. You gave it once to save us, Nala said. Now let the Heartstone return it. She pressed the glowing pearl from Mama Koi Koi to Zila's lips. It melted into her. Zila gasped, and then opened her mouth. Her song was unlike anything they had ever heard. It was not a song of joy or sorrow, it was a promise. It told of pain and healing. Of chains broken. Of a sea that refused to be silenced. The serpents froze. Their blind eyes glowed. Then slowly, they bowed. The trench calmed. The sea stilled. The Heartstone pulsed once more, and then lifted itself into Nala's hands. It had chosen her. They returned to the surface hours later, the Heartstone safe in Nala's arms. The waters around them shimmered with life. Even the sun seemed brighter. As they swam toward Ilunla, Toba looked at his sister. What now? Now, she said, we return to the world above. And show them what happens when you try to steal from the sea. The waters shimmered like molten bronze as Nala and her companions surfaced with the Heartstone. Seabirds circled overhead, calling in strange rhythms as if they sensed the sea had changed. The floating village of Ilunla was waiting. Word had already spread. Villagers stood in silence along the walkways, holding baskets of herbs and salt to honor the returned. Fishermen tapped their oars against their canoes, a quiet drum of welcome. Mama Koi Koi stood at the edge of the village platform, leaning on her carved staff. When she saw the glow in Nala's hands, she closed her eyes. It is true, she whispered. The sea has chosen. As Nala stepped onto the platform, the Heartstone pulsed in her arms. Children backed away in awe. The mermaids followed her, their heads held high, tails brushing across the wooden slats with soft hisses. Toba stepped beside his sister, the sea still glistening on his skin. What now? Mama Koi Koi answered. Now, we summon the Council of Shells. That night, the village center transformed. Lanterns made from giant snail shells were hung between palm branches. The air smelled of roasted plantain and seawater incense. Drums echoed low and slow, a heartbeat to match the Heartstone's rhythm. The Council of Shells was a secret gathering, a council older than the floating village itself. It was said to have been founded by the 7 first mermaids and 7 first land folk who once brokered peace between the river and the earth. They did not meet often. Only when the sea was in danger. Inside the circle hut at the heart of the village, 7 carved chairs stood around a bowl of tidal water. One for each region of the ancient coast. The counselors entered one by one. Elder Uduak, the river sage from the Niger's mouth, tall and silent, his skin marked with swirling white chalk. Lady Tenny, the voice of the Eastern Wave clans, whose head wrap was woven from eel thread. Papa Lomo, the crab lord of Bakassi, who walked with a limp and wore coral armor on his shoulders. Grandma Esh, a sharp-eyed fisherwoman who knew every tide chant and curse from Lagos to Lomé. Madame Oba, the trader queen of the Gulf, who spoke only in proverbs and had a laugh like crashing waves. Chief Bongo, a muscular man from the salt mines, whose staff had a sharp tooth at its head. And finally, Mama Koi Koi, the last chair, the bridge between sea and sky. Nala entered the circle slowly, flanked by Toba and the mermaids. She held the Heartstone in both hands. The bowl of water in the center glowed blue. The council stared in silence. Then Mama Koi Koi spoke. The sea has been wounded. Her daughters have been stolen. Her voice has been silenced. The others nodded. Nala stepped forward. I speak for the mermaids, she began. I speak for the ones stolen, caged, and drained. I speak for my sisters. I speak for the sea. She placed the Heartstone gently in the bowl. The water hissed as it touched, then calmed. They are harvesting mermaid essence, she said. Turning it into immortality serum. Selling it to the rich. Trading life for power. There was a long silence. Papa Lomo growled. "This cannot stand." "But how widespread is it?" asked Lady Tenny. "Are they using one ship, or many?" Toba stepped forward. "They've already built a fleet," he said. "The ship I worked on, the Bone Dagger, was just one of many. Funded by a network called the Eternal Trade. They operate across ports. They're expanding." Grandma Esh spat. "Vultures." Chief Bongo banged his staff. "Then we fight." "Not yet," said Madame Oba coolly. "We need evidence." She looked at Nala. "Do you have any?" Nala nodded. "I recovered this from the ship's lab." She reached into her satchel and pulled out a glass orb. Inside, strands of silver essence floated like smoke. "It's pure mermaid spirit, trapped. Manufactured. Branded. Look." She turned the orb to show the mark, a golden sigil that looked like a three-headed serpent biting its own tail. "The symbol of the Eternal Trade," Toba confirmed. Elder Uduak leaned forward, his voice deep and calm. "If they have this, they can live forever." "No," said Nala. "But longer. Stronger. And greedier. And they won't stop," added Pina softly, "until every mermaid is gone." The council sat in silence, the crackle of the oil lamps the only sound. Then Mama Koi Koi stood. "Then we must break the trade," she said. "Root and branch. Chain and coin." Papa Lomo rose too. "We gather our allies. Fisher clans. River kings. Deep-sea tribes." Lady Tenny nodded. "Even the whales must know." Chief Bongo grinned. "It's been too long since the salt mines marched." "But we must be careful," said Madame Oba. "These traders have spies. Ships. Weapons we've never seen. Magic twisted with machines." She looked at Toba. "What about the other commanders? Will they stop?" Toba shook his head. "No. They were trained since birth to believe mermaids are demons. Their hearts are metal. Their pockets are endless. Then we use what they fear," said Mama Koi Koi. She turned to Nala. "You have the Heartstone. That is the sea's rage. And its mercy," Nala added. "Exactly. You can bend the waves. Crack holes. Drown machines. But you must choose how." The water bowl shimmered again, and visions rose. A war fleet sailing through fire. Mermaids in chains, crying in darkness. A child in a village, drinking the serum and aging backward until his body crumbles. "Enough," Nala said, and the visions vanished. "I will end the eternal trade. But I will also save those who were tricked, those like my brother, who were stolen before they could choose." Toba looked at her, ashamed. She touched his hand. "You came back. That is enough." Mama Koi Koi lifted her staff. "Then we move at dawn. We will send runners, send waves, send wind. The sea is not silent." The counselors stood. And one by one, they chanted. "The water remembers. The ocean rises. The daughters return." The battle had not begun. But the sea was no longer sleeping. The night after the Council of Shells, the air was thick with stormlight, but the ocean remained still, eerily so, as though the waters themselves were listening. In the quiet of Mama Koi Koi's hut, Nala sat cross-legged before the Heartstone, watching it pulse like a living heart. The mermaids lay curled around her in the shallows of a moonlit tide pool, their scales shimmering under the light of lanterns carved from starfish shells. Toba sharpened his blade quietly near the entrance. But sleep would not come. Nala's mind spun like a storm, the horrors she had seen in the trench, the ancient serpents bowing, the vision of cities built on mermaid bones. And through it all, a single name echoed in her thoughts. Kweku. Her brother. Stolen at birth. Now leading the hunters. She clenched her fists. "Tomorrow," she whispered to the Heartstone, "we find him." A voice behind her replied. "Then you'll need this." Nala turned. It was Elder Uduak, wrapped in a cloak of river silk. He carried a roll of brown bark tied with bone string. "What is it?" she asked. "The Map of Thieves," he said, sitting beside her. "Old. Forbidden. Written by the sea herself." He unrolled it carefully, revealing a massive scroll painted with ink from squid and soot. But this was no ordinary map. It shimmered with shifting marks, harbors that vanished, islands that moved, and trade routes that curved like snakes. Nala leaned closer. Symbols flickered into view, each one pulsing faintly. "They move," Toba said, startled. "Yes," Uduak nodded. "This map shows not where ships were, but where they are. It tracks ships that carry mermaid essence. Those stained by forbidden magic." Pina and Zila joined them, curious. The Heartstone pulsed brightly beside the map, as if recognizing something. Uduak pointed to a dark red spiral near the top corner. "Here. The Fire Spine Islands. Their capital port, Ogun's Mouth, is where the Eternal Trade keeps its vault." "Vault?" Toba asked. "Yes. A place where they store stolen essence, and records." Nala's eyes gleamed. "Records? That means we can learn who funds them. Who buys the serum? Who builds their ships?" "Exactly," Uduak said. "Burn their gold, and the fire dies." "But it won't be easy," added Mama Koi Koi, entering the hut with a bundle of scrolls. "The Fire Spine is protected by fire spirits, hired guards, and the Sea Shapers." Everyone fell silent at the last name. Toba frowned. "Who are the Sea Shapers?" Nala answered before anyone else could. "They're twisted magicians. Pirates who use broken sea magic and mix it with machine oil. They wear fish bones for crowns and pilot ships made from the ribs of whales. They serve Kweku now," said Uduak grimly. "They think he is the Sea Lord." Zila signed something quickly with her fingers, and Pina translated. "She says Kweku wears a crown of chain. That he hunts with a blade made from mother of pearl and fire." Nala swallowed hard. "I need to face him." "Not yet," Mama Koi Koi warned. "Your magic grows, but the Heartstone is not enough. You must gather the lost voices." "What are they?" asked Pina. "Mermaids and humans who once stood against the Eternal Trade but vanished. Some are hiding. Others, waiting to be found." She unrolled another scroll. "The map will lead you to them." She pointed to 7 blinking marks across the sea. One in a sunken lighthouse swallowed by coral. One deep in the volcano caves of Iramol. One beneath a shipwreck known as the Iron Bones. One inside a desert spring, far inland. One trapped in an eternal storm in the west. One imprisoned in a ghost town. And one, missing entirely. "They will help us bring the sea's fury," Mama Koi Koi said. "But also her memory. You must gather them all before the vault is broken." Toba exhaled. "That could take moons." "Then we start at dawn," Nala said. She stood and looked at the map again. "Which is closest?" Elder Uduak touched the lighthouse mark. "Here. The Coral Tower of Bantu. It's just 3 tides away, but no one who has entered its shadow has returned." Zila touched Nala's arm and signed again. Pina translated quickly. "She says she's been there. Once. Long ago. Before her voice was taken." Nala turned to her and nodded. "Then you will lead us." They packed their things through the night: spirit masks, charms, echo shells, and the map. Mama Koi Koi gave Nala a leather satchel stitched with moonfish hide, lined with salt crystals to protect the Heartstone. Before dawn, the village gathered once more to bless them. Drums echoed over the waves. The air shimmered with sea spells. As the small boat glided from the village, pushed by dolphin-finned sails and magic currents, Nala looked back only once. Mama Koi Koi stood at the edge, raising her staff in silent blessing. Toba rowed quietly. Pina whispered tide songs to calm the wind. Zila sat at the front, eyes locked on the horizon, her tail twitching like a compass needle. They sailed into a rising sun. Toward the coral tower. Toward secrets buried in bones. Toward war. The sea whispered warnings. As the small canoe-like boat sliced through glowing waves, Nala stood at the bow, her braids whipping in the salt wind, eyes locked ahead. The coral tower of Banta loomed in the distance, a pale spire jutting from the sea like the tooth of a drowned god. It was beautiful. And terrifying. The tower shimmered with the colors of dead coral, blues and purples that flickered like flame. Sea birds circled it, calling in broken voices, their feathers crusted with salt. Lightning danced above it, though no storm touched the water. Even the waves around the base flowed backward, as if the ocean itself was trying to run. Pina clutched her necklace of bone charms tighter. It doesn't want us to come near. Zila made a short, sharp gesture. She says the tower remembers pain, Pina translated. Many entered. None returned. Even spirits avoid it. Toba looked uneasy. What happened here? Nala touched the heartstone, which pulsed once, cold and faint. I don't know, she said softly. But the lost voice is inside. Their canoe neared the tower's base, where shattered shells and bones clung to jagged coral. The entrance was a dark crack in the tower's side, big enough for a person to crawl through. A strange, humming silence wrapped around it. I'll go first, Nala said. But Zila shook her head firmly. She dove into the water without a sound and swam toward the opening, tail flashing like a silver blade. Toba stared after her. She's brave. Pina nodded. She lost her voice protecting this place long ago. Now she returns. Moments later, Zila emerged from the darkness and waved them forward. One by one, they slipped into the crack, Nala last. She carried a lantern made of crabglass and flame seeds, casting strange shadows on the walls. Inside, the tower was alive. The walls were made of coral that pulsed gently, like it was breathing. Strange whispers echoed, songs without singers. The air was damp and thick, tasting of sorrow and salt. The floor spiraled upward in a narrow staircase made of bone and shell. They climbed. Each step whispered to them in different voices. Nala. Toba. Zila. Pina froze, her eyes wide. That was my mother's voice. Mine too, said Toba, swallowing hard. But she's gone. The tower remembers, Nala whispered. At the next landing, they found the first singer's mark, a glowing rune shaped like a wave inside a teardrop. A seal, Pina said. Old ocean magic. It binds pain. Zila signed quickly. She says we must break 3 of these to reach the center. How? Toba asked. Pina blinked at the rune, then looked at Nala. With truth. Nala stepped forward. She placed her hand on the rune. The rune darkened. A vision surged forward, blinding and full of pain. She saw herself as a baby, wrapped in fish-skin blankets. Her mother held her and her twin, Kweku. A shadow loomed over them. Men in iron masks. Screams. Her mother's hands soaked in blood as she pushed the children apart, hiding one and letting the other be taken. No. Nala gasped. The vision ended. The rune cracked and vanished. Toba helped her stand. That was real, Nala whispered. I saw him. As a baby. Before they took him. They climbed again, deeper into the coral tower's heart. 2 more seals awaited. The second was broken by Zila. She pressed her hand to the mark and closed her eyes. The room filled with sound, like a song being torn apart. Suddenly, they heard her voice, Zila's true voice, sweet, high, and sad. A lullaby in a forgotten tongue. It was the last song she had sung before her voice was stolen by the serum harvesters. When the vision faded, she had tears in her eyes. The second rune vanished. Then the final chamber waited. The third seal was different. It pulsed wildly. Frantic. Afraid. Pina stepped forward this time, though her hands trembled. The vision hit them all at once. A great storm at sea. A merchant ship chased by pirate hunters. Children hidden in crates. One boy crying. One girl silent. A deal made in darkness. A betrayal. Nala and Kweku divided. A traitor's voice spoke, low and cruel. Take the girl to the village. She's no use. The boy, though, he has power. The ship vanished into the storm. The vision ended. All four of them stood frozen. Nala's heart raced. Kweku didn't abandon me. He was stolen. Just like I was. Toba looked away. They twisted him. Turned him into a weapon. Zila signed slowly, but maybe he can be unbroken. The final seal cracked, and the tower shook. Coral peeled away, revealing a secret chamber beneath the floor. Inside was a pool of perfectly still water. In its center floated a single shell the size of a drum, glowing with gentle green light. Nala stepped closer. The shell opened. Inside lay a woman, her skin pale blue, hair braided with seaweed and pearls. Her eyes opened slowly. "You found me," she said, voice soft and ancient. "I am Kima, the keeper of lost songs." "You're one of the voices," Nala whispered. Kima nodded. "I was trapped here to protect what remained. Songs. Memories. Truth. But now the ocean stirs again. You are the one the sea has chosen." "I need your help," Nala said. "To stop the eternal trade. To find my brother before he is lost forever." Kima rose from the shell, water dripping from her hair. She placed a hand on Nala's chest, where the heartstone pulsed. "The sea has given you her fury. Now, I give you her song." Light flowed into Nala's heart. A soft sound rose in her throat, something she hadn't known she was missing. A note. A name. A power. She could sing now. Kima looked to the others. "And each of you will be needed. The war ahead is greater than you know. The fire ships multiply. The sea shapers grow bold. And the vault is nearly full." They stared at her. "Then we must move quickly," said Toba. Kima nodded. "The next voice lies in the volcano caves of Iramol. But beware. That path leads through the shark smoke reef, and it is guarded." "By what?" Pina asked. Kima's voice dropped. "By the Flamebloods. And the last loyal hunter of Kweku's court." A name chilled the air. Captain Baraka. Toba tensed. "I know him. He taught me everything I know, and then betrayed me." "Then we must face him," said Nala, standing tall. The coral tower was still now. The echoes of lost songs fading into peace. One voice had returned. 6 remained. The sea had teeth. Long, sharp ones. That's what Pina said as their boat entered the waters of Shark Smoke Reef, a stretch of ocean so feared that even whales refused to cross it. The name wasn't a joke. This place breathed. Great columns of black smoke rose from the water, puffing upward in slow sighs. The smoke didn't come from fire, but from underwater vents, cracks in the sea floor that belched clouds so thick they turned day into dusk. The water bubbled in places, and strange shapes moved just beneath the surface. Some of them had fins. Some had eyes. Some had hands. "Stay sharp," Nala whispered. She held the heartstone close against her chest, its gentle pulse reminding her to stay calm. The gift from Kima still sang faintly in her soul, a new magic she didn't fully understand yet. The Song of the Sea. Toba stood at the back of the boat, one hand gripping his harpoon. "We're not alone." Zila signed quickly from her place near the bow. "She says something's tracking us," Pina translated. "Something fast." Nala scanned the water. The smoke made it almost impossible to see more than a few arm lengths ahead. Their canoe glided silently, the waves around it suspiciously still. No birds. No breeze. Then came the first sound. Clang. metal on metal, followed by a low whistle. Toba spun, harpoon raised. That was a signal. Another whistle replied, echoing over the reef. Then, from the smoke, came the shadows. 3 sleek boats, painted black and bone, cut through the mist like sharks. At their front stood warriors wrapped in rusted armor and sea serpent skins. Their faces were hidden behind masks made from broken diving helmets. Each carried weapons glowing with fire essence, stolen mermaid magic. In the center boat stood the biggest man Nala had ever seen. Captain Baraka. He wore no shirt, only a vest made from crocodile leather, and his arms were crisscrossed with burns and tattoos. His head was shaved, revealing tribal scars on his skull. One eye was gold, literally. The other burned with hatred. He raised his voice. So, the priestess comes at last. His voice echoed across the water like a curse. Nala stood up in the boat. Baraka. You were once a guardian of the sea. How did you fall so far? Baraka laughed. It was not a kind sound. Fell. No, little witch. I rose. I saw what the sea really is. Endless. Cruel. Full of treasure. And I learned to take it. You harvest my sisters, Nala said coldly. You steal their essence. For what? To sell to cowards who fear death. Fear. Baraka stepped forward on his boat, arms spread. No, girl. The rich hate death. That's why they pay. And I merely deliver. For a price. Toba stepped beside her. You taught me to protect the ocean. You lied. Baraka's smile faded. And you were always too soft, boy. It's kill or be killed. The world doesn't reward protectors. Only conquerors. Pina shouted, we don't want to fight. Baraka's voice turned sharp. Then you shouldn't have come to my reef. He snapped his fingers. From the smoke around them came a monstrous shape. A giant shark, black as night, with smoke rising from its gills and red scars glowing across its body. Its mouth opened wide, revealing metal teeth. Nala's breath caught. Flame blood shark. Zila signed furiously. She says the hunters carved fire essence into its heart. It's no longer natural. It's enslaved. The shark circled their boat once, then dove. Baraka pointed at them. Leave the girl. The rest of you can go. Nala raised the heartstone. Come for me, then. Baraka whistled. The shark surged from the depths, jaws wide. Nala moved on instinct. She opened her mouth, and sang. A note echoed from her chest, not in words, but in feeling. A melody of pain, of sorrow, of freedom. The song of the sea poured from her lips and struck the shark like a wave of light. The creature froze in mid-leap. Its eyes, once burning red, flickered. Then softened. With a great splash, it landed not on their boat, but back into the sea. It dove deep and vanished. Baraka's face turned red. What did you do? I reminded it, Nala said. What it was before you broke it. Baraka howled in rage and drew 2 curved swords from his back. Enough games. Kill them all. The reef exploded into battle. Baraka's warriors leapt from their boats, splashing into the water with hooks and nets. Zila met them head-on, her tail a blur, her dagger flashing in the smoke. She moved like the ocean itself, fast, unpredictable, fierce. Toba battled 2 men at once, using his harpoon like a spear and a staff. He parried, spun, and drove them back, shouting, Pina. The sails. Pina scrambled to the back of the boat, pulling on the wind charms they had tied to their sail. Magic gusted into the cloth, and their boat shot forward. Baraka leapt across the gap. He landed in their boat with a crash, swinging his blade toward Nala. She ducked, rolled, and blocked his second swing with the heartstone's glow. You're strong, he growled. But not strong enough. You don't know me, she said, and sang again. The note she sang now was one of memory. Of a coral reef before the hunters came. Of sea turtles swimming in peace. Of mermaids dancing in moonlight. The magic hit Baraka like a wave of truth. He staggered. Just for a moment, his hands trembled. "I remember," he muttered. And in that instant of weakness, Toba struck. His harpoon slammed into Baraka's shoulder, knocking him off the boat. The captain screamed as he splashed into the water, the red smoke swallowing him. The battle broke. Without their leader, the other warriors fled. The black boats vanished into the reef's fog, leaving behind silence and the smell of burnt salt. Nala collapsed, breathing hard. They had survived. Barely. Zila helped Pina bind Toba's bleeding arm. Nala looked out over the reef, unsure whether Baraka had drowned or escaped. But one thing was clear. The Heartstone's song could do more than protect. It could change. Toba looked at her. That song, it hurt him. But it also showed him something. Truth, Nala said quietly. It's the sea's most dangerous gift. They sailed onward, past the reef, the smoke thinning behind them. Ahead lay the volcano caves of Iramol, where the next lost voice waited. But Nala knew the battles would only get harder. Especially if Kweku was watching. The sea ended where the fire began. Nala felt it before she saw it, a rumble in the bones of the ocean, like a giant sleeping beneath the waves. The waters shimmered with strange heat, and the air carried the scent of ash and melted stone. Ahead, black cliffs rose from the ocean floor, jagged and cracked, glowing in places with an angry red light. They had reached the volcano caves of Iramol. This was no ordinary mountain. It was an island that bled fire. Even the waves hissed as they touched its burning rocks. Smoke rose from deep cracks in the cliffs, and now and then, a tremor passed through the world like a breath from a dragon. Birds did not fly here. Fish dared not swim close. Pina's face turned pale as she whispered, "This place is cursed." "No," Nala said, watching the rising steam with steady eyes. "It's angry." Toba nodded. "And for good reason. This is where the Flamebloods were created." Zila signed quickly. "She says the volcano was once sacred to Mami Wada's fire daughter," Pina translated. "She kept the balance between heat and sea. But the eternal traders dug too deep. They built machines under the mountain," Toba added. "Used lava flows to power their serum labs. They poisoned the spirits of this place." Nala stepped onto the rocks. The stone was warm even through her sandals. "Then we'll cleanse it. And find the second voice." They climbed cautiously, their path winding between steaming cracks and pools of boiling water. Strange plants grew here, fire blossoms that sizzled when touched, and ash-colored vines that moved slightly on their own. Every sound echoed. Every shadow seemed to watch. Halfway up the path, a voice called out. "You shouldn't have come." It was soft. Female. And made entirely of flame. A figure stepped from behind a molten pillar. She was tall and slim, with skin that glowed like embered coal and hair that waved like fire in the wind. Her eyes were golden and sad. She was not quite human. Not quite spirit. She was something between. "I am Imuka," she said. "Keeper of the Everfire. And the second voice you seek." Nala stepped forward. "We came to find you. The sea is rising against the eternal trade. We need your power." Imuka tilted her head. "Then prove you're worthy." The mountain groaned beneath their feet. Imuka waved her hand, and the rock split open. They fell. The four of them tumbled into darkness, landing in a wide cavern where the air shimmered with heat. Lava ran in thin rivers along the walls. Fire crystals floated in the air like stars. And in the center of the room, a cage of bone and glass. Inside it lay a mermaid. She was limp, her scales dull, her eyes half-closed. And she was glowing from within, her essence being drained slowly by tubes that pulsed with molten light. "No," Nala whispered. "Not again." Imuka's voice echoed from the walls. This is Lami, once a guardian of the deep. Now trapped by the same machines your brother built. You say you want my power. Then save her, before her fire fades. The ground shook as stone beasts rose from the shadows, golems made of black rock and burning ash, their bodies creaking with heat. Toba stepped in front of the group, raising his harpoon. Here we go again. Zila dove into a lava stream like it was water, her fire-adapted tail propelling her in quick bursts. She struck the first golem from behind, driving her coral blade into its glowing joint. Pina ran to the cage, ducking blasts of flame, her fingers already working to unlock the bone latches. These are binding runes. They feed on fear. Keep them off me. Nala raised the heartstone and sang. This time, her voice carried the strength of storms. Lightning cracked across the cavern ceiling. The song shattered 2 golems at once, blasting them apart with the fury of the deep. But more came, stronger, hotter. Imuka's test had begun. Toba grappled a burning rock beast, slamming it into a molten wall with a shout. Faster, Pina. I'm trying. Pina snapped, her hands glowing with stolen heat. Zila hurled a chunk of magma at another golem, buying them seconds. Nala reached the cage and laid her hand on the glass. The mermaid inside stirred, eyes fluttering. Lami, she whispered. We're here to save you. The mermaid opened her mouth, no words came, only a long, aching moan. The tubes pulsed faster, stealing more of her essence. She's dying, Toba said. Now. Pina slammed her fist onto the final rune. It cracked. The cage shattered. Lami collapsed into Nala's arms, weak but breathing. The golems froze and crumbled into ash. Imuka stepped into the chamber, her flames dimmed slightly. You passed. Nala helped Lami sit up, brushing hair from her face. We need her alive. She will live, Imuka said. Thanks to you. The cave quieted. The rivers of lava dimmed, turning golden. Imuka approached Nala and placed a burning hand on her forehead. You have the sea's voice. Now, I give you fire's memory. A rush of images filled Nala's mind, volcanoes erupting beneath the ocean, hot springs singing in harmony, lava dancing with rain. And with it, a new note joined her song. The note of flame. Imuka looked at them all. But you must hurry. The vault is nearly full. Kweku's ships multiply. And the flame bloods are not all bound by honor. Nala nodded. We've faced Captain Baraka. We're ready for what comes. Imuka's eyes flickered. No. You are not. Not yet. She turned to the cavern wall and raised her hand. The stone peeled back like paper, revealing a glowing path of fire and mist. This leads to the Isle of Echoes, Imuka said. Where your third voice sings from the deepest well. But beware. Her golden eyes locked with Nala's. Your brother waits for you there. A tremor shook the mountain as the fire cracked and whispered secrets none could hear. The journey had only just begun. The path opened like a breath of flame behind them. The rocks whispered, the fire dimmed, and silence curled in from the sea. They followed the burning trail through the mountainside, into a tunnel of light and smoke. No footsteps echoed, only the distant hum of voices that didn't belong to anyone present. Do you hear that? Pina asked, eyes wide. Toba paused. It's voices. Zila signed quickly. Pina nodded. She hears them too. But they're not speaking. They're singing. Nala closed her eyes. It was true. The walls sang with thousands of whispers, layers and layers of songs, like old lullabies sung underwater. Some were happy. Some were broken. And one, just one, sounded familiar. A boy's voice. Clear and lonely. Kweku, Nala whispered. The path ended suddenly. They stepped out of the tunnel and onto a cliff that overlooked a strange island, not wide, but steep, rising out of the sea like a giant's drum. Mist swirled around its base, and white trees grew on the rocks like bleached coral. In the center stood a tall spire made of polished shells. It shone like silver in the dim light. "The Isle of Echoes," Toba said. "I heard stories. They say this is where the first mermaids came to remember their names." Zila looked uneasy. Pina explained. "The isle remembers every word ever spoken to the sea. Every wish. Every lie. If you speak here, it stays forever." The group made camp near a stream that ran from the hilltop. The water was warm and tasted faintly of salt. That night, Nala couldn't sleep. The voices wouldn't let her. She stood at the edge of the cliff, staring out into the black ocean. The mist below pulsed softly, and in it, she heard it again. Her brother's voice. Not angry. Not cruel. But lost. "Nala." She turned sharply. "Kweku." A shape moved in the mist. A boy, tall, cloaked in dark robes with glowing blue threads woven through the fabric. His face was shadowed, but the light of the moon caught his eyes. They were hers. Kweku stepped forward. The air around him shimmered with power, an invisible wave of energy that made the trees bend ever so slightly. "I knew you'd come," he said. Nala's heart twisted. "You remember me." He smiled. "I remember a little girl with stormy eyes and braids made of beads. You cried when I was taken. You were just a baby. And they told me the sea killed our mother." Nala stepped forward, pain flashing in her chest. "That's not true." Kweku's face darkened. "They said mermaids whispered into her mind. That she ran into the water and never came back. The sea took her. So I vowed I'd take something back. They lied to you." Kweku raised his hand. "No. They taught me to survive. They gave me knowledge about machines, about power, about how to never be weak again. You became one of them. I became something greater. I built the vault. I saved thousands of elites from death. And now, I'm close to finishing it. With one last harvest, I can give immortality to the world." Nala shook her head, stepping closer. "At what cost, Kweku? You're draining our sisters. Destroying the sea." He stared at her for a long moment. Then he said something that chilled her. "I know." He raised his other hand, and a glowing orb appeared between his palms. Inside it, Nala saw a vision, rows of mermaids in crystal tanks, their essence slowly being pulled away, their eyes empty. Kweku spoke softly. "I wanted to believe they were monsters. I did. But I saw one cry. Not scream. Cry. And I couldn't stop hearing it." Nala stepped even closer. "Then stop, Kweku. Come with me. Help us undo the damage." He looked down. His voice trembled. "I can't. If I turn on them now, they'll kill me. Or worse, replace me. They already have others ready. I'm just a face now. A symbol. I can't leave. You're more than a symbol. You're my brother." Kweku's eyes glistened. Then he whispered, "I never forgot your lullaby." From somewhere in the trees, the isle itself responded. A soft hum rose, Nala's childhood song, sung back by the rocks. The isle remembered. Kweku turned his face away. "You have to leave. Now. The Wraith fleet is on its way. Baraka's death made them nervous. They're sending Obara. She hunts without mercy. She has no soul." "Then fight with us," Nala pleaded. "Use what you know. We can stop her." But Kweku stepped back into the mist. I'm not ready." Nala reached out, but her hand passed through smoke. He was gone. Only the song remained. Behind her, Toba and Pina had arrived. Zila hovered in the trees, watching. Pina looked shaken. Was that really him? Nala nodded. He's still there. Deep down. Toba frowned. But if he doesn't act soon, he'll be the one who ends everything. Nala looked out toward the sea, where dark ships were rising over the horizon like a shadow army. "They're coming," she said. "And this time, they're not afraid to burn the whole world to win." From the ocean came a horn blast. 3 notes. One low. One high. One hollow. Zila signed sharply. Pina translated, her voice full of dread. "She says that sound means death. That's the horn of Obara the Soul Catcher. A woman once human, now something else entirely. She hunts mermaids like wolves hunt deer," Toba said grimly. "And she doesn't just take essence. She eats it." Nala stood tall. "Then we meet her here. On the isle that remembers. And we make sure she never forgets what we are." The mist thickened. The ships drew near. And deep beneath the island, the echo stirred. The fog on the isle thickened like old breath, crawling over the land and licking at the rocks. The mist was no longer soft, it was heavy now, laced with the smell of rust, oil, and burnt coral. They had arrived. The Wraith Fleet. Out on the sea, shapes began to form in the fog, massive ships, dark as night and shaped like whale bones twisted into towers. The ships moved without sails. They glided, as if pulled by something deeper than water. And on each deck stood tall, still figures in black armor, their eyes glowing blue through narrow slits in metal masks. But it was the middle ship that stole the breath from Nala's throat. It rose higher than the others, shaped like a serpent's spine. Chains wrapped around its hull. The front of the ship had no figurehead, only a mouth carved open, with jagged teeth of steel. From it, she emerged. Obara. She did not walk, she floated. She wore robes made of smoke and chain, and her arms were wrapped in strips of glowing spirit cloth that hissed when the wind touched them. Her face was covered by a red mask shaped like a crying skull, and from her back rose sharp fins like broken wings. But it was her voice that turned the air cold. It came not from her mouth, but from the wind itself. "Bring me the storm priestess. Or I will turn your isle into a graveyard of echoes." The island shuddered. Nala, standing on a ridge with Toba, Pina, and Zila, narrowed her eyes. "So that's the one they fear." Pina's hands trembled slightly as she loaded her arrows. "They say Obara used to be one of us, a Wada priestess. But she gave herself to the traitors when she lost her soul in a forbidden spell." Toba grunted. "Now she feeds on voices. Drains them straight from the heart." Zila gestured quickly. Pina translated, "She says Obara can hear lies. Even if you don't speak them." "Then we tell the truth," Nala said. With thunder. She stepped forward, lifted the heartstone, and began to sing. This time, the song was not gentle. It was the voice of waves crashing on cliffs, of storms breaking trees, of justice rising like a flood. The very rocks beneath her feet lit up with blue fire, and the air thrummed with power. Obara turned her head toward the song. For the first time, she paused. "So, you are her." Nala's song ceased. She stood on the edge of the cliff and shouted, "You've stolen enough. Leave this place before the sea drags your ships to the bottom." Obara raised her hand, and the wind froze. Then, a scream echoed from the sky. A ghostly shape flew down, a spirit falcon, its wings made of shadow and wind, its cry piercing. Obara had sent her scout. The falcon dived toward the cliff. Zila leapt into action, slamming her blade into the ground. A pillar of coral shot up, blocking the creature's path. Toba hurled his harpoon and struck its wing. Pina loosed an arrow that exploded into vines. The falcon shattered into smoke. But the message was clear. "She comes." Nala turned. "We defend the isle. No matter what." They began preparing traps across the ridges, Zila weaving spiked coral fences, Pina planting bone spike arrows in grooves, and Toba rigging old sea mines salvaged from the ruins below. By the time night fell, the stars were gone. Covered by ships. Obara's army stepped onto the isle with no sound. Her soldiers, the Hollow Ones, had no voices. They were men and women who had once served the sea but had given up their names. Now they obeyed only her. Nala faced them at the ridge. Behind her, the white trees of the Isle glowed faintly. The air held memory. The stones remembered the footsteps of warriors past. Obara rose above them all. She pointed her staff, which hummed with essence energy. "Give me your song, storm child." "Come take it," Nala replied. And then, the battle began. The Hollow Ones charged, fast and silent. Toba was the first to meet them, his harpoon swinging in wide arcs. Every strike cracked armor. Pina darted between them, her arrows singing with fire and smoke. Zila disappeared into the mist, reappearing only to drag enemies into the deep. Nala stood still. Her voice rose. A new song. This one carried the memory of Lami's suffering, the cry of mermaids in crystal tanks, the rage of volcanoes, and the sadness of a stolen brother. The air turned blue. The sky cracked open. Lightning struck the sea. Obara hissed. She flew forward, her staff glowing with a sickly green light. Their magic collided. Nala's blue wave of light struck Obara's storm of red shadows. The force pushed trees flat and made cliffs shatter. The heartstone blazed. Obara shrieked and swung her staff. It hit Nala square in the chest. She flew back, crashing into a tree. Her breath vanished. Obara advanced, her mask dripping with dark mist. "You're strong. But you don't know pain yet." She reached down, and a tendril of shadow snaked toward Nala's throat. Pina screamed, "Nala!" But before Obara could touch her, a new voice rang out. Soft. Firm. Masculine. "Let her go." Obara paused. Kweku stepped from the shadows. He wore a robe of deep blue, symbols of the eternal trade glowing faintly, but his face was bare. He held no weapon. Only a vial of the Immortality serum. Obara turned to him. "You dare betray us?" Kweku nodded. "I saw too much. I heard too much. She's right. We went too far." He dropped the vial. It shattered on the rocks. Obara screamed. "You fool!" She lunged. But Nala was on her feet now. Heartstone blazing. Kweku threw himself between them. And Obara's staff struck him square in the chest. The Isle of Echoes screamed. The trees wept mist. Nala caught her brother as he fell. His eyes met hers. I remembered the lullaby. Then he went still. Obara raised her staff again, but this time, Nala was ready. She sang. The sky turned white. A tidal wave rose from the sea and crashed into the cliff, sweeping Obara and her army back into the ocean. The Hollow Ones vanished. Obara screamed as she was dragged under, her mask cracking. And then, silence. The sea was calm once more. But on the rocks, Nala held her brother's body. Toba placed a hand on her shoulder. Pina knelt beside her, crying. Zila stood over them, blade drawn, watching for any movement. But the storm had passed. And the price had been paid. The Isle of Echoes lay still. The stars returned, faint and blinking, like timid eyes peering down at the wounds below. The sea whispered once more, gentle and tired. But among the coral bones and broken chains, grief held the deepest silence. Nala knelt over Kweku's body. His robe, once laced with power, now lay dull and torn. The glow in his chest had faded. And though his lips were still slightly parted, as if about to whisper something, no sound came out. Toba stood behind her, head bowed. Pina sobbed softly, clutching a shell that Kweku had once tossed to her when they met on the cliff, his way of showing peace. Zila stood watch, her blade lowered for the first time. The storm was gone, but the ache it left was heavy. Nala touched her brother's face. "You came back," she whispered. "Even when it was too late, you came back." A faint shimmer drifted from Kweku's body, a glow like a firefly's light. It rose gently and hovered in the air. Nala reached toward it without knowing why. It landed in her palm. She heard his voice. "I never stopped searching for the truth, Nala. Even when they tried to blind me. I'm sorry I couldn't finish the journey. But you will." She clutched the light to her chest, tears slipping silently down her cheeks. Pina stepped closer, voice small. "Do we bury him here?" Toba shook his head. "The Isle doesn't bury. It remembers." Zila signed something slowly. Pina translated, "She says this is a sacred place. Kweku's soul now belongs to the sea. His echo will live here forever." Nala nodded, wiping her eyes. "Then let it speak his name." They carried Kweku's body to the cliff's edge. With great care, Nala laid him on a bed of white leaves. Around him, they placed the tools he had once used, a broken vial, a blue-threaded robe, and a seashell carved with the sign of the twin flame. Nala stood and sang. This song was not like the others. It was low. Soft. A morning melody of rain against rooftops, of mothers singing children to sleep, of promises kept even in death. The heartstone dimmed, glowing like a lantern instead of a torch. The wind slowed. And then, from the trees, the Isle answered. Voices rose, not just one, but many. Kweku's voice was among them, now added to the great echo. He laughed, whispered, sang, and wept, all at once. A memory forever carved into the bones of the island. They stood in silence, listening. Even the stars seemed to lean closer. When the echo faded, Toba cleared his throat. We can't stay here. Obara may be gone, but her fleet might return. Pina asked, what if she survived the wave? Zila signed something grim. Pina looked unsettled. She says Obara's kind don't die easy. If she returns, she'll come back worse. Changed. Maybe even soulless. Nala rose. Then we make sure we're ready. We stop hiding. We take the fight to the vault. Toba raised an eyebrow. The vault. Yes. It's where they keep the captured mermaids. Where they process the serum. It's where it all began. But how do we find it? Pina asked. Nala reached into her pouch and pulled out a glowing shard, one of Kweku's memory orbs. It pulsed softly. He left me a key. She crushed it gently between her hands, and the light exploded into a glowing map. It hovered in the air, showing a vast underwater fortress beneath a coral reef shaped like a hand. Pina gasped. The sunken palm. That's where the water goes still. Where no fish swim. Zila signed rapidly. She says no one who enters that reef ever comes out. It's cursed. Toba snorted. Everything's cursed these days. Nala stepped forward, her face firm. Then we'll break the curse. She turned to her companions. We have a few hours before dawn. Rest. Heal. Say what you must to the echoes. We leave when the tide turns. They nodded, and for a short time, each of them drifted apart across the isle. Pina sat under a white tree and wrote on a leaf with an inkstone, her letter to her lost brother, who had once dreamed of becoming a wave dancer before the traders took him. Toba knelt at the edge of the cliff and dropped a stone carved like a turtle into the sea. For my people, he muttered. For the ones you drowned. Zila climbed the highest tree, gazing out at the moon. She didn't weep. She didn't speak. But the tree glowed softly where she touched it. And Nala returned to where Kweku lay, placing the heartstone beside him. Just for a moment. Letting it rest. I will end what they started, she whispered. Not with revenge. But with truth. She rose, turned toward the others, and called out. Let's go. They gathered their packs. The Isle behind them whispered once more, this time, gently, like a mother saying goodbye to her children. The white trees swayed. The voices hushed. And 4 figures disappeared into the mist. On the sea, the moonlight painted a silver path. They would follow it to the darkest place beneath the waves, where no mermaid had ever escaped, where truth was locked behind glass and greed, to the vault of still waters. And this time, they would not leave empty-handed. The sea grew quiet as the sun broke the horizon, casting long orange beams across the water. The light touched Nala's face gently, like a hand trying to wake her from a dream. But she was already wide awake. Her eyes were set on the sea. Not just any part of it, but a dark, still patch ahead where the waves did not roll, and the fish refused to swim. It was like the ocean had forgotten to breathe. The sunken palm. A forbidden reef shaped like a hand reaching up from the ocean floor, its 5 coral ridges spread like twisted fingers. It was where even sharks turned back. The water here was blacker than the sky. "This place feels wrong," Pina muttered, clutching her bow tightly. Toba agreed. "It's too still. Like the sea is holding its breath." Zila signed a warning, "We are being watched." Nala nodded. "It's not just the sea. It's the vault. We're close." They floated on a carved canoe shaped like a sea lion, enchanted by Zila to glide quietly over the water. Every few seconds, a deep hum came from beneath them, like a giant heartbeat under the waves. Then they saw it. A glimmer below. A massive shape loomed beneath the surface, lit by rows of soft purple lights. It looked like a fortress made of glass, coral, and iron, all fused together in twisting curves and sharp edges. The vault of still waters. From above, it looked like a sleeping beast. And they were about to wake it. "How do we get in?" Pina whispered. Nala held up the memory shard Kweku had given her. He said the entrance was hidden in a thumb coral. "We dive." Toba groaned. "Of course we do." Without waiting, Nala dove. The others followed. The water was freezing, biting at their skin like tiny teeth. But Zila's enchantment wrapped them in a soft bubble of warmth. They glided downward, deeper and deeper, past thick towers of brain coral and rusted bones of forgotten ships. Then they saw it, a small round opening in the side of the reef, just wide enough for one person at a time. Nala swam forward and pressed the shard into a slot beside the entrance. The coral opened. A tunnel appeared, glowing with soft green light. One by one, they entered. The tunnel wound downward in a spiral. The walls were lined with glass tubes filled with tiny glowing fish that shimmered like stars. Then, suddenly, the water around them vanished. They broke through a bubble and dropped into air. They were inside the vault. They stood in a long hall made of smooth black stone and clear glass, where water flowed through pipes overhead like sky rivers. Strange machines buzzed quietly, and green lights blinked in rhythm, pulse by pulse. Pina took it all in, whispering, "This place is alive." Zila nodded, then signed something. She says it's built with part of a living sea beast, one that once guarded the bottom of the world. Toba scowled. "Of course it is. Why can't anything be normal?" Nala led them forward. At the end of the hall, a large round door stood waiting. On it was the same symbol Kweku used in his memory shard, a twin flame inside a spiral shell. The door opened with a hiss. And what they saw inside made them all freeze. Rows and rows of glass tanks. Each tank held a mermaid. Some floated in a strange sleep, their eyes closed, their hair waving like seagrass. Others were awake, but silent, their mouths covered by glowing masks. Their tails flicked weakly, and their eyes were wide with fear. Dozens of them. Their skin shimmered in all colors, deep blue, bright silver, golden green. Their scales sparkled like moonlight. Nala stepped forward, her heart cracking. "These are my sisters." She reached out and placed a hand on one of the tanks. The mermaid inside blinked slowly and pressed her hand to the glass in return. A spark passed between them. Her name whispered into Nala's mind, Isioma. She was still alive. Then they heard a noise. A soft shuffle. They turned quickly, ready for a fight. But instead of a guard or machine, they saw a child. A boy. Maybe 10 years old. His eyes were too large for his face, and his arms were thin like reeds. He wore a collar of blinking lights around his neck. He stared at them silently, then pointed toward the far end of the chamber. "There's more," he said. "They're in the deep vault." Nala knelt, surprised. "Who are you?" The boy didn't answer. Instead, he tugged at her hand. "Come. Before they find you." Zila narrowed her eyes. Pina leaned toward Nala. "He's one of the serum-born, created by the traders. He's a hybrid." Nala looked into the boy's eyes. "What's your name?" He hesitated. "They call me Echo." Nala smiled softly. "Then thank you, Echo." They followed the boy through a narrow passage behind the tank room. It led into a darker hall with thick glass floors. Beneath them, Nala saw shadows moving, massive ones. "Are those sea monsters?" Toba asked. Echo nodded. "They're protectors. Made from the old ones. But they only wake if the traders call them." "Let's hope that doesn't happen," Pina muttered. At the end of the hall was a door sealed with a lock shaped like a serpent's eye. Echo whispered, "They keep the serum lab here, where they drain the mermaids." Nala felt her stomach twist. She touched the lock, and the heartstone on her necklace flared. The lock clicked open. They stepped into the final chamber. And froze. The room was cold. At the center stood a massive table, shaped like a spiral shell. Dozens of silver pipes hung from the ceiling, ending in sharp points. Below them were small glass pools, each one swirling with glowing liquid. The Immortality serum. Machines hummed softly, feeding the tanks above. This was where they drained the mermaid's essence. Pina cursed under her breath. Zila drew her sword. Toba slammed his fist into a control panel. Nala stepped forward, fire in her eyes. "No more." She turned to her companions. "We destroy this place. All of it." Toba grinned. "Now that's a plan." They split up. Pina began planting bone fire arrows in weak spots. Zila carved a path for the mermaids to escape through the coral wall. Toba smashed machines with his harpoon, roaring like a storm. And Nala walked to the main tank and sang. Her voice echoed through the vault, shaking the pipes and cracking the glass. The mermaids began to stir. Their eyes opened. Their tails flicked. They rose. Their eyes locked with Nala's. And they began to sing with her. The vault trembled. The tanks shattered. The serum boiled. Alarms began to blare. Echo screamed, "They're coming. The traders are coming." But Nala didn't stop singing. The storm was just beginning. The vault of still waters shook like a living thing waking from a long, dark dream. Pipes hissed. Alarms howled like wounded beasts. Red lights blinked across the chamber. Machines groaned under the weight of chaos. In the center, Nala stood, still singing. Her voice grew stronger with every word, every note. The mermaids had joined her, their songs weaving together like threads in a great sea net. It was a harmony that shook the bones of the fortress. Glass cracked. Tanks burst. Silver serum spilled across the floor like glowing rivers, slipping into the cracks and sizzling on the stone. Pina pulled back her bow, now glowing with bone fire, and loosed an arrow into a power conduit. Boom. A section of the wall exploded, sending smoke and sparks flying. Water rushed in from the sea beyond. Zila slashed at control panels with her storm blade, sparks dancing around her like fireflies. She signed quickly. She says we need to move fast. The sea beasts below are stirring. Toba tore open a supply locker, handing Echo a breathstone. Hold this in your mouth when the water comes in. It'll help you breathe. The boy nodded, eyes wide. Thank you. But then they heard it. A new alarm. A deeper tone. Slower. Like a heartbeat made of thunder. Nala's voice caught in her throat. That's not just a warning. That's a call. Toba looked up. A call to what? The floor trembled. Beneath the glass, something moved, slow and massive. A shadow uncoiled, larger than any fish or whale. Pina's face went pale. They've awakened the Leviathan. Zila's eyes narrowed. She signed, the soul of the vault. The beast in the deep. Nala turned to Echo. Can we escape through the coral path Zila opened? He shook his head. Not if the Leviathan rises. It'll block everything. We'll be trapped. The mermaids were breaking free now, some swimming, some crawling across the slippery floor. Their eyes were wild with confusion and fear, but when they saw Nala, they moved toward her, drawn to her presence. Get them out, Nala told the others. Now. But what about you? Pina asked. I'll hold the Leviathan back. Toba stared at her. Are you mad? That thing is the size of a mountain. I don't need to fight it, Nala said. I need to remind it. Of what? Echo asked. Nala lifted the heartstone from her chest and looked at the swirling essence inside. That it once had a name. With that, she ran. Down the sloped corridor. Past bursting pipes and blinking lights. Toward the core of the vault. The others didn't waste time. Zila took the lead, guiding the wounded mermaids to the escape tunnel she had carved through the reef wall. Pina covered their retreat, loosing arrow after arrow to destroy machines and create more exits. Toba lifted those who couldn't walk and carried them two at a time. The vault groaned. The sea roared in from cracks in the glass dome above. And from the depths, the Leviathan stirred. Below the vault. Nala reached the final chamber, a dome of dark crystal, shaped like a giant eye. In its center was a pit of swirling shadow. No light entered. No sound escaped. She stood at the edge. The Leviathan lay coiled in the pit, half asleep, its enormous head resting on coral like a serpent king on a throne. Its body was covered in ancient armor made of barnacles, black stone, and living metal. Its eye, when it opened, was the size of a canoe. And it saw her. Nala raised the heartstone. I know who you are, she said, her voice trembling. You are not just a beast. You are not just their weapon. The Leviathan growled, a sound that made the walls shake. They made you forget, Nala whispered, tears in her eyes. But I remember. I was told the stories. My grandmother sang them. She stepped forward, her feet barely clinging to the slippery stone. You were once a guardian. A spirit of the sea. Your name was Ojo, the great eye beneath. The Leviathan froze. For a moment, all was still. Then it moved. Slowly, it rose from the pit, uncoiling like a tidal wave made of muscle and memory. Water burst through cracks in the ceiling as the dome cracked and shook. Ojo leaned close. One giant eye stared into Nala's tiny face. She felt it, not just in her bones, but in her blood. A recognition. A song older than words. So she sang. A lullaby passed down through the line of Mami Wata priestesses. A song of calm tides and silent deeps. The melody wrapped around Ojo like a soft rope, pulling gently. The Leviathan blinked. Its growl stopped. Its armor shifted, cracking slightly. Glowing lines appeared across its scales, patterns that looked like ancient tattoos of the sea gods. It let out a deep sigh, and the air smelled of salt and stars. Nala smiled. Remember. Ojo let out a deep hum, a sound like a ship's bell heard from miles away. It echoed through the vault. The alarms stopped. The red lights faded. Even the water slowed. Ojo had chosen not to rise. Not to destroy. But to rest. Nala bowed. Thank you. Above. Pina and the others reached the coral tunnel. Behind them, dozens of rescued mermaids swam and crawled through the breach, escaping into open water. Toba looked back. She's not here yet. Zila was already diving in to go after her, but then the vault quieted. A low hum rippled through the water. The Leviathan's voice. A moment later, Nala appeared, swimming toward them, her heartstone glowing bright. She did it. Echo shouted. She tamed the Leviathan. No, Nala said softly. I reminded him who he was. They all swam together, back into the open sea. Behind them, the vault sank lower, its machines still but intact. The Leviathan had allowed them to escape. But it was still there, watching. Waiting. Later, on a floating rock shrine. They rested on a floating reef covered in sea lilies. The rescued mermaids lay wrapped in seaweed blankets, recovering their strength. Echo sat beside Nala, munching on dried yams. Pina stitched a map of the sea routes they had taken. Toba stood watch with a spear. Zila sat in silence, her eyes on the waves. Nala looked at them all. We hurt the traitors today, she said. But we didn't end them. There are more vaults. More prisons. More mermaids still crying in the dark. Zila signed something. Pina read it aloud. She says she will fight until the sea is free. So will I, Toba grunted. Me too, Pina added. Echo looked up. Me three. Nala nodded, her heart full. She looked out to the sea. The wind whispered. The tide turned. And far away, beneath the waves, Ojo the Leviathan rested, his memory returned, his purpose renewed. But the fight was not over. No. It was just beginning. The morning sun had barely risen over the distant horizon when Nala felt the first tremor through the sea. It was faint, like a whisper from the deep, but it was enough to send a shiver down her spine. The battle with the vault might have been won, but something still stirred beneath the waves, something older than the Leviathan, something that had waited for centuries. Her heart sank. The traitors won't just give up, Nala murmured to herself, staring out across the vast, endless ocean. Beside her, Zila was crouched, studying the waves. She signed quickly, her face tight with concern. They will hunt us. We've stirred the sea, and they'll bring fire. Nala nodded, her grip tightening around the heartstone that hung around her neck. She hadn't told the others yet, but she could feel its pulse more clearly now. The stone wasn't just a relic of Mami Wada, it was alive, imbued with the very essence of the sea. And it was calling. The salt roads are not far from here, Nala said, turning back to her companions. We need to find the sacred path, before they do. Pina squinted toward the horizon, her eyes scanning the water. What's this about salt roads? Never heard of them. Nala explained, salt roads are hidden currents, paths through the deep sea known only to the mermaids and the oldest of sea spirits. They're the ancient trade routes, used long before the traders came. But they're dangerous. Only a few can navigate them safely, and we've already seen what the traders are capable of. They'll want those roads for their own. Toba clenched his fist, his grip on his harpoon tightening. Then we'll beat them to it. And what if we can't? Pina asked quietly, her voice barely above a whisper. Then we'll make them regret ever trying to control the sea, Toba said grimly. Nala looked at her friends. This isn't just about us anymore. It's about every mermaid who's been taken. Every soul locked away in those vaults. We fight for them. Echo, sitting on a rock nearby, looked up at her, his small face serious. And we fight for the sea. The group gathered their things. Echo handed Nala a small stone, glowing faintly in his hands. This will help you find the road, he said. I've seen the path before. But it's not just a road, it's a living thing. It shifts. Pina laughed softly, though the sound was tight with worry. Of course it is. The sea can't ever make things easy, can it? Nala smiled slightly. No. But that's what makes us stronger. The journey took them deeper into the heart of the ocean, away from the shallow reefs and toward the great depths. The water grew colder, and the sunlight dimmed as the sea around them grew darker, more mysterious. The deeper they went, the more Nala could feel the heartstone tugging at her, calling her toward something unknown. Echo's stone began to glow brighter the further they went, casting an eerie light on the waves around them. The currents were strong here, pulling them into the deep, but Echo steered them with careful precision. "This is it," he said quietly. "The road is here." Nala squinted ahead. The water seemed to ripple strangely, almost like a mirage. At first, it looked like the ocean was just empty, but then she saw it. A faint line, like a crack in the sea itself, stretching across the horizon. It was the salt road, more than just a path. It was a living thing, a river of salt water that curved and twisted, constantly shifting. "This is no ordinary current," Pina said, staring at the road with wide eyes. "It's alive." "More like it's alive and angry," Toba muttered, keeping his eyes on the shifting waters. Zila signed, warning them. "The road doesn't give easy passage. Only those with the sea's blessing can survive it." Nala took a deep breath. She had felt that blessing before, in the heart of the Leviathan, and she felt it now. The Heartstone pulsed in time with her heartbeat. The sea was with her. But would it be enough to protect them? Without a word, Nala nodded. She pushed forward, leading the way into the path of the salt road. The waters around them churned violently. The sea rose and fell in waves that seemed to be alive with energy. The air thickened with the salt of the deep, and Nala could feel the pressure mounting, like the sea was testing them, challenging their right to pass. Suddenly, a great crack echoed through the ocean, followed by a series of high-pitched sounds that reverberated through Nala's bones. The salt road reacted, twisting, narrowing, and then expanding. "The path is closing," Echo shouted, fear in his eyes. "We need to move faster," Nala commanded. Her heart was pounding, and the water around her surged with unnatural force. She reached out for the Heartstone, feeling the surge of power within it. Then, from the shadows of the road, a shape emerged. A creature of fire and smoke. It was a fire sea serpent, a creature older than time itself, bound to the salt roads to guard them against trespassers. Its scales glowed with a red-hot light, and its eyes burned like twin suns. It hissed and coiled in the water, its massive body winding through the sea. "Not good," Toba shouted, pulling his harpoon from his back. The fire serpent let out a shrill cry, charging toward them. Its fiery breath boiled the water around it, creating a ring of steam that made the air unbreathable. Nala raised her hands, summoning the Heartstone's power. The sea around her surged, responding to her call. She could feel the currents shift, weaving through her fingers like threads. "Stay back," she ordered. "I'll hold it off." The others hesitated, but Nala's voice brooked no argument. She summoned the sea's magic, reaching deep into the salt road, calling upon the ancient power of the ocean itself. The fire serpent hissed, its body curling like a storm cloud. It lunged toward Nala, but just as it reached her, the sea responded. With a roar, the waters rose up, enveloping the serpent. The serpent struggled, but the sea's power crushed it, pulling it under. Steam billowed from the creature's body, but it was no match for the sea's wrath. "Go. Now," Nala shouted. Her friends didn't need to be told twice. They pushed forward, the salt road growing even more treacherous as the serpent was pulled deeper into the ocean. As they moved forward, Nala could hear the faint sound of the serpent's shrieks fading into the depths. The salt road was alive, but now it had a different purpose. It was opening for them, clearing the way. The Heartstone pulsed again, stronger than ever. And Nala knew, deep in her soul, that the sea was not just a place, it was a living thing, and it had chosen them. The traders' pursuit. But as they sailed deeper, Nala's heart grew heavy with the knowledge that the traders were not far behind. The salt road stretched ahead, a winding path that twisted like a serpent's tail through the deep blue sea. Its current pulled them forward with an unrelenting force, but the journey was far from peaceful. The water around them was thick with tension, and Nala could feel the change in the air. The sea was restless, agitated, as if something dark and dangerous was coming. The Heartstone pulsed softly against her chest, its rhythm steady, like a heartbeat of the ocean itself. But even that couldn't calm the storm that was brewing in her mind. Every instinct told her they were being hunted, watched by unseen eyes. "Do you feel that?" Nala asked, her voice barely above a whisper as she looked at her companions. The others nodded, their expressions tense. Pina, ever the scout, squinted toward the distance. "There's something in the water," she said, her voice low but firm. "I can feel it." "Something big," Toba added, his hand instinctively reaching for his harpoon, his eyes scanning the shadows beneath the waves. "We're not alone down here." The others fell silent, each of them straining to listen. The sound of the salt road's current was the only thing that filled the air, a constant rush of water that seemed to grow louder with each passing moment. Then, a deep rumble echoed through the ocean, a sound that wasn't from the sea itself, but from something beneath it. Nala's heart skipped a beat. "It's them," she said, her voice barely audible. "The traitors." They had found them. And they were coming. The traitors' warship. Far behind them, hidden beneath the water, a massive shadow moved. The traitors had a fleet of ships, but none like this. This was a warship, its black, metallic hull cut through the water with terrifying precision. It moved in complete silence, leaving no wake, no trace. Only the slightest ripple in the sea betrayed its presence. The ship was built for one thing: hunting. It had no sails, no masts, only smooth, obsidian-like armor that absorbed the light, making it nearly invisible. But Nala could sense its presence, the dark magic pulsing from it, a force of twisted power and cold calculation. "They're not just after the mermaids," Zila said, her voice steady despite the rising tension. "They want the Heartstone." Nala nodded grimly. The Heartstone was a relic of Mami Wata, and it was far more powerful than any of the traitors could imagine. They would stop at nothing to capture it, and her. "What are we going to do?" Echo asked, his voice shaking. Nala looked at him and then turned her gaze toward the others. "We're not running anymore. We need to stand and fight. We won't let them take the Heartstone. Not while we're still breathing." Toba's grip on his harpoon tightened. "I'll fight them to the last breath." Pina nodded, unsheathing her bow. "We have to protect the mermaids, too." "We won't let them win," Nala said, determination filling her voice. "This is our fight now. The sea chose us." And as if in response, the sea rumbled again, its currents pulling them deeper into the salt road. The path narrowed, the water growing colder, darker, as the road led them toward the heart of the deep. A dangerous bargain. As they moved deeper into the salt road, the water grew thick with salt mist. The ocean was alive around them, shifting and pulsating, but the deepened shadows brought a sense of dread, as though something ancient was awakening. Then, suddenly, the water before them parted with a crash. From the depths, a massive figure emerged, half human, half fish, her scales shimmering with the light of the Heartstone. It was a mermaid, but not just any mermaid. This one was different. She wore armor made of coral and barnacles, and her eyes glowed with an eerie, unnatural light. "I am Tyamu," the mermaid said, her voice cold and authoritative. "And I've been sent to make a deal." Nala's hand went instinctively to her weapon, but she stopped herself. Something about this mermaid felt different. Dangerous. Tyamu's eyes narrowed. "I can sense the Heartstone. You carry it with you. But I am not here for that. Not yet." Zila signed furiously, her brow furrowed. "She's one of the traitors' enforcers. She wants to control us." "Not control," Tyamu said, shaking her head. "Join us. The traitors are not the enemy you think they are. They offer a future of power, immortality. The world is changing, and the sea must adapt." "We are the sea," Nala spat, her voice thick with anger. "And we won't be bought or sold." Tyamu's expression remained unchanged. "Then I'll ask again, what is your choice? Join us and live, or fight and die?" The tension in the water was thick enough to cut with a knife. The mermaids around Nala were silent, watching, waiting for her response. Nala stepped forward, her hand gripping the Heartstone, feeling its energy surge through her. "We'll never join the traitors. You're nothing but pawns in their game." Tyamu's eyes flickered with something close to pity. "So be it." With a swift motion, she raised her hand. The water around them exploded. Dark tendrils of seaweed shot from the depths, wrapping around Nala and her companions. The mermaids cried out, trying to break free, but the seaweed held them fast, squeezing tighter with every second. The warship loomed closer, its black hull now visible, casting a long shadow over them. The traders were coming, and they had the power to control the sea. But Nala refused to give in. She summoned the power of the Heartstone, its light shining brighter than ever before, cutting through the darkness of the sea. The seaweed cracked and splintered, the dark tendrils snapping like fragile twigs. "Let them go," Nala shouted, her voice echoing through the water. Tyamu's eyes widened as the sea itself seemed to answer Nala's call. The water shifted, the salt road bending and twisting in ways that defied nature. The warship was forced to stop, unable to advance through the changing currents. "Not today," Nala whispered, and with one final burst of energy from the Heartstone, she sent a shockwave of power through the water. The tendrils of seaweed shattered, and Tyamu was thrown back into the depths, her cry fading into the dark. A last stand. The warship paused, but the traders were not done yet. They were coming. And they would stop at nothing to claim the Heartstone and the mermaids. Nala turned to her friends, her heart pounding in her chest. "We can't outrun them. We have to make our stand here." Echo looked at her, his eyes full of fear, but also something else, a quiet, unspoken determination. "We fight together," he said. Toba nodded. "We fight for the sea." The water around them was alive with energy now. The Heartstone pulsed, filling them with strength and purpose. They were ready. But the traders were coming. And they would bring the flames of war. The warship loomed before them like a shadow, dark and imposing, its black metal glistening under the ghostly light of the Heartstone. The sea around them, once filled with the music of waves and the dance of the currents, was now eerily silent, as if even the ocean itself held its breath. The only sound was the heavy, rhythmic pulse of Nala's heart and the distant hum of the trader's warship as it powered forward. Nala stood at the front, her body tense, her fingers wrapped tightly around the Heartstone. She could feel its energy coursing through her, a raw, ancient power that connected her to the deep sea. But even with all the power of Mami Wata flowing through her, Nala knew they were outnumbered. The traders had resources, magic, and fire. She had her friends, the sea, and her determination to protect her people. "Ready yourselves," she said, her voice steady despite the turmoil inside. "We fight for the mermaids, for the sea, and for the freedom that the traders want to take from us." Toba's eyes burned with determination as he clutched his harpoon. "They won't take anything from us. Not while I'm standing." Pina, ever the sharpshooter, knocked an arrow to her bow. "Let's make sure they regret ever crossing us." Zila, who had been silent up until now, signed quickly, her hands moving in a fluid dance of warning. "They've been waiting for us. They've set traps. Be careful." Nala nodded. She had felt the dark presence of the warship, felt the twisted magic of the traders weaving around them, but they couldn't afford to be afraid. Not now. "Echo, stay close," Nala said, turning to the young boy. He was the most vulnerable, but he was also the one who could see the road better than any of them. "I need you to guide us." Echo gave her a quick nod, his small frame tense with nerves, but his eyes held a quiet resolve. "I won't leave you." The first strike. The warship was close now, its dark silhouette cutting through the water like a shark's fin, sleek and deadly. The first sign of danger came from below, an explosion of bubbles as the sea stirred. Nala barely had time to react before a barrage of harpoon bolts shot out from the warship, slicing through the water with deadly precision. "Watch out!" Pina shouted, diving to the side just as one of the harpoons whizzed past her. Toba was faster, his harpoon raised, his eyes scanning the water. He fired in return, his bolt striking the metal armor of the warship with a deafening clang. "They're targeting us from all sides." Toba shouted. "We need to move." The sea around them began to shift, responding to the chaos. Nala felt the Heartstone's pulse quicken, the sea bending to her will as she wove the currents into a shield, deflecting more incoming harpoons. The water around them grew turbulent, and Nala could see the traders' soldiers preparing for battle on the deck of their ship. They were ready for blood. "Get to the salt road," Nala shouted, her voice cutting through the chaos. "The salt currents will protect us." But the traders had anticipated this move. As the group began to push forward, the water beneath them erupted with a series of dark, shadowy forms, creatures twisted by magic, their bodies made of dark seaweed and hardened salt. They were the traders' enforcers, bound to the warship by dark spells, and they rose from the depths like sentinels. Zila growled in frustration. "We can't outrun them. We have to fight." Nala raised her hand, calling upon the Heartstone's power. A pulse of light erupted from the stone, sending a shockwave through the water. The sea seemed to respond to her call, swirling around the enforcers, but the creatures were relentless, their dark forms only growing stronger in the presence of the warship. "This is it," Nala said, her voice resolute. "We fight." The clash of forces. The first enforcer charged, its body shifting and morphing into a massive, serpentine creature. It hissed as it lunged toward Nala, but Toba was faster. He hurled his harpoon with deadly precision, piercing the creature's body with a violent splash. But the enforcer didn't fall. Instead, it writhed in the water, its body reforming as dark tendrils of seaweed reached out to wrap around him. "Toba!" Pina shouted, firing an arrow into the enforcer's side. The arrow found its mark, but the creature was too powerful, its form dissolving into a cloud of salt and darkness. It was a relentless force, pulling Toba into its grasp. "Toba!" Nala cried, her heart seizing as she reached out. With a surge of power from the Heartstone, the sea answered. Waves of water rose up around the enforcer, pushing it back, but not enough to free Toba. The creature's grip tightened, and Toba's face was twisted in pain. "Help him!" Nala shouted, and the group surged forward to aid him. Echo, using his small size to his advantage, darted between the twisting tentacles, grabbing hold of Toba's arm. With a flash of light, he summoned his own power, an ability that had grown stronger since their journey began. He sent a pulse of light through the seaweed, burning away the tendrils that had ensnared Toba. With a roar of pain, the enforcer released Toba, but not without leaving deep gashes along his arm. "Toba!" Pina shouted, swimming to his side. "Are you all right?" Toba gritted his teeth, his hand clutching the wound. "I'll live. But we need to finish this." Nala nodded, her eyes narrowing as she saw more of the traders' enforcers closing in. "We'll finish this, together." The water churned with the heat of battle, the sea alive with energy and fury. The Heartstone's power surged through Nala's veins, and she could feel the ocean responding to her command. Waves rose, crashing against the enforcers, while Toba, Pina, and Zila fought side by side, pushing back against the relentless tide. But in the distance, the warship loomed closer, its deck swarming with the traders' soldiers, ready to board the salt road. And then, through the chaos, Nala heard it, a voice, cold and commanding. "Stop!" The sea froze. The enforcers halted, and the water around them stilled, as if every living creature was holding its breath. Nala turned slowly, her heart racing. A figure emerged from the warship, stepping into the water like a shadow cast from the depths. He was tall, dressed in dark armor that shimmered with a sickly, unnatural light. His eyes glowed with the same malevolent energy that radiated from the warship. It was Krogar, the leader of the traders. And he was here to claim the Heartstone, by force, if necessary. The choice. Krogar's voice was smooth, his words heavy with the promise of power. "Nala of the sea, you are standing in my way. Surrender the Heartstone. You cannot win this battle. You cannot protect the mermaids. But if you join me, I can offer you more than you could ever imagine. Immortality. Power. Dominion over the seas. All of it will be yours." Nala clenched her fists. She could feel the weight of his words, the temptation of power, but she knew deep in her soul that it would come at a terrible cost. The sea was not meant to be controlled. It was meant to be free. "No," she said firmly, her voice steady as she raised the Heartstone higher. "I will never serve you. The sea belongs to us all, not to you. Not to anyone." Krogar's eyes narrowed, his lips curling into a smile of cold amusement. Very well. Then prepare to face the consequences. The words hung in the water like a dark promise. The tension in the sea thickened, heavy with the weight of impending destruction. Krogar, standing tall on the edge of the warship, exuded an air of unshakable confidence, his gaze cold as the depths themselves. He had made his offer, an offer of power, immortality, and control, but Nala would never accept it. Not at the cost of the sea's freedom. Her hand gripped the heartstone tighter, its warmth radiating through her, answering her call. The sea whispered around her, its pulse syncing with the beating of her heart. It was alive, a living force, and it was ready to fight. Toba stepped forward, his harpoon held high. "We're not afraid of you, Krogar," he shouted, his voice strong, even as his injury ached. Pina's bow was drawn, the sharp arrow aimed at the leader of the traders. Her eyes were narrowed, her stance firm. "You'll regret underestimating the sea." Zila signed quickly, her hands moving in a blur. "We don't have much time. We need to end this before his forces overwhelm us." But Krogar's smile only deepened, his voice low and dark. "You think you can stop me? You are nothing but children playing in the waves." And with that, the sea around them surged, the water darkening as tendrils of shadow rose from the depths. The traders were coming, rising up from beneath the water like storm clouds. Soldiers in black armor, their eyes glowing with a sickly green light, swarmed onto the deck of the warship. They raised their weapons, harpoons, whips, and nets woven from the very sea itself. They were more than just soldiers. They were controlled by dark magic, bound to Krogar's will. The mermaids, bound and imprisoned below deck, could only watch in silence. Their eyes were filled with fear, but also hope, as they sensed the power of the Heartstone. They knew Nala was their last hope. The sea stirred, but Nala could feel the heart of it beating harder now, stronger, louder. She reached out, closing her eyes as the power of the Heartstone surged through her. "Now," she whispered. The ocean responded. The wrath of the sea. The warship groaned as if in pain, its metal hull creaking under the weight of the magic surrounding it. Krogar's smile faltered as he looked down, the sea shifting around him like a living thing. The salt road itself began to bend and twist, the currents growing more violent as the ocean seemed to reach up and grab at the warship. The creatures of the deep, once thought to be mere legends, began to rise, great sea serpents, giant squids, and massive whales, all drawn to Nala's call. "No. This is not how it ends." Krogar shouted, his voice growing frantic as he raised his hands, summoning dark, twisted magic of his own. Shadows rose from the water, coiling around him like serpents, shielding him from the fury of the ocean. But Nala was not deterred. She was not just a priestess now. She was the ocean itself, a force of nature that no man, no traitor, no dark magic could control. The Heartstone flared with light, casting a brilliant glow through the water, pushing back the darkness. The creatures of the sea roared in unison, a cacophony of fury, as they charged toward the warship. Nala felt the power of the Heartstone like a pulse in her chest, matching the rhythm of the sea. With a single motion, she raised her arm, and the water obeyed. Massive waves crashed against the sides of the warship, tearing at its hull. The trader's soldiers screamed as they were swept away by the oncoming tide. The sea was reclaiming what was rightfully hers. "Stop them!" Krogar bellowed, his voice now filled with fear. His soldiers scrambled to hold their positions, but the waves were too strong, the water too powerful. The warship began to tilt, its once pristine deck now covered in dark seaweed and broken harpoons. Nala's eyes blazed with determination. "You cannot control the sea," she shouted. "The sea is free. You will never enslave it." Krogar's face twisted with rage as he summoned the last of his strength, his magic pushing back against the waves. But it was too late. The warship was already sinking, its mighty hull cracked and splintered by the force of the ocean's fury. The fall of Krogar. The sea roared, its anger now a song of liberation, and Krogar's control over the water faltered. The shadows around him began to dissolve as the sea surged higher, swallowing them whole. He fought, his eyes wild with desperation, but the power of the Heartstone and the fury of the ocean were too much for him to overcome. No! Krogar screamed, his form disappearing beneath the water as the waves crashed down upon him. The trader's warship was no more, nothing but splinters and debris scattered across the sea. For a moment, there was silence. The sea stilled, as though it, too, was catching its breath after the battle. Nala's chest heaved with exhaustion, but she stood tall, her grip still firm around the Heartstone. The ocean had responded. The warship was destroyed. Krogar was gone. But the sea, her sea, was still alive, still free. "We did it," Pina said, her voice full of awe as she lowered her bow, her eyes wide. Toba breathed a sigh of relief, though his injury still pained him. But at what cost? Nala's gaze shifted to the wreckage, to the trader's soldiers scattered across the waves, defeated and broken. Their dark magic had been washed away, their twisted power rendered useless. The sea had won. But the battle was not over. "The Heartstone's power is not gone," Nala said quietly. "It still calls to the sea, to the mermaids, to everything in its wake." Zila signed again, her eyes sharp. "What now?" "We've stopped Krogar, but the traitors will return. We need to rebuild. Protect the mermaids." Nala nodded. She could feel the Heartstone's pulse deep within her, its power still growing. The sea was with her, but it was up to them to protect it. The battle had been won, but the war was far from over. "We'll rebuild," Nala said firmly. "We'll protect the sea. And we'll make sure that no one can ever control it again." And as the first rays of the sun pierced through the dark clouds above, Nala could hear the distant call of the mermaids, their song rising from the depths. The Heartstone glowed brighter in her hand, its light like a beacon of hope in the ocean's vastness. The war against the traitors was over, for now. But there would always be more battles to fight, more challenges to face. Nala knew that her journey had only just begun. The sea had calmed, its once turbulent waters now serene, as though it too had grown tired from the battle. The Heartstone's glow had faded, its power still strong but no longer overflowing. Nala stood at the edge of the water, the horizon stretching wide before her, the future uncertain but full of promise. The wreckage of the traitors' warship floated in pieces around them, and the defeated soldiers were scattered across the waves, some clinging to debris, others pulled under by the ocean's pull. The traitors were no more. Krogar, their cruel leader, had been swallowed by the sea. His dark magic had been undone, his grip on the world broken. But the aftermath of the battle was not without its weight. Toba, still clutching his arm, swam over to Nala, his expression grim. "The sea has won, but we lost so much," he said softly. "Many mermaids are still imprisoned. We freed the ones who were aboard the ship, but what about the others?" Pina joined them, her eyes scanning the horizon. "The traitors' influence is still felt. They were only the tip of the iceberg. There are more who will come, more who want to control the sea, to steal its magic. We can't relax yet." Nala nodded, her heart heavy with the burden of the journey ahead. The battle had been won, but it was only one battle in a much larger war. The world was full of those who sought to control what was meant to be free. And the sea, the mermaids, the creatures of the deep, they all needed her protection. She looked down at the Heartstone, its soft glow still pulsing in her palm. She had once thought the Heartstone was the key to everything, the answer to all their struggles. But now she understood the truth, it was not the stone that had brought victory, but the sea itself, and the courage of those who stood beside her. "The Heartstone is not just a power," Nala said quietly, her voice carrying the weight of the lessons she had learned. "It's a reminder of what the sea is. The sea is freedom. It's life. It's not meant to be controlled, not by me, not by anyone." Toba and Pina exchanged a look, and Pina nodded. "You've learned what many can't. The power isn't in the stone or in the magic, it's in the heart of the one who wields it." "Exactly," Nala said, her voice growing stronger. "The sea doesn't belong to anyone. It belongs to everyone. It's not for the taking. We must protect it, nurture it, and respect it. We fought to protect the mermaids, to keep them free. but we must do the same for everyone, for all who live in harmony with the sea." Zila, who had been watching the scene from the side, signed quickly, her hands moving with urgency. "What about the mermaids?" she asked, her eyes full of concern. "We freed them, but they are not safe. We still have to rebuild their villages, heal the wounds of the past." Nala smiled at her friend, understanding her concern. "We will rebuild. We will protect them, just as we've protected the sea. It will take time, but we will do it. Together." A new dawn. The days that followed were filled with rebuilding. The mermaids, once held captive, were now free, their villages beginning to rise again from the depths of the ocean. Nala and her companions traveled far and wide, offering their help to those in need. They spoke to the leaders of the underwater cities, the elders of the mermaid clans, and even the ancient creatures of the deep, forging alliances and strengthening the bonds of their world. The Heartstone was no longer something that could be wielded to control the seas. Instead, it became a symbol of balance, a reminder of the power that lay in the unity of all things, land, sea, and sky. It was placed at the heart of a new council, where mermaids, humans, and creatures of the deep would come together to protect the sea and ensure that no one would ever attempt to dominate it again. As for Krogar's legacy, it faded into myth. The traders who had once sought to control the sea now had no power. The people who had been driven by greed and hunger for immortality were now scattered, their influence broken. The world had been reminded that power, when misused, brings only destruction. And in its place, the sea, wild, untamed, and free, would remain a symbol of hope and renewal. The final lesson. Nala stood on the shore of a quiet village, looking out at the vast expanse of the ocean. The sun was setting, casting a golden glow across the water. She felt the warmth of the sea breeze on her skin, the same breeze that had carried her on this journey. She could feel the whispers of the ocean in her ears, its constant, reassuring rhythm. Echo stood beside her, his eyes wide as he took in the beauty of the moment. "Is it really over?" he asked, his voice soft. Nala smiled, resting a hand on his shoulder. "It's over. But this is just the beginning. The sea is always changing, always alive. We must never stop protecting it. The sea will always be free, right?" Echo asked, his eyes filled with hope. "Yes," Nala replied, her voice firm and full of conviction. "As long as we stand together, the sea will always be free." And as the waves lapped gently at the shore, Nala understood the true meaning of the journey they had all been on. It wasn't just about defeating the traitors or saving the mermaids. It was about learning that true power comes not from control, but from understanding. True strength lies in unity, in working together to protect what is most precious, the world around them. The sea, like life itself, is vast and unpredictable. It can be both beautiful and dangerous, calm and wild. But no single person, no one race, no one kingdom, can ever claim it as their own. The sea belongs to all who live in harmony with it. Power is not for the taking, it is a responsibility, one that must be wielded with care, respect, and love for the world it shapes. And so, Nala learned that true greatness comes from protecting the balance of life, not trying to dominate it. The greatest gift one can give to the world is to safeguard its freedom, to nurture the harmony between all beings, and to always remember that power, when used for the good of all, can change the world. The Heartstone's glow faded, but the lessons it had taught would remain forever, passed down from one generation to the next, like the eternal waves of the sea.